Okay. Looks like we are live. I think the countdown worked this time. Maybe. Third time might be a winner. I shall see in a
Oh, did
little
it not
bit.
work before?
Um, not the first time.
Oh no.
But
This is the first time I've been on with the countdown.
Oh, that was cool though.
yeah.
Feel the tension building.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So this is the weekly restart. This is my podcast. I usually do every Monday night around 8 p.m. Eastern time. There's been some jumbling around, but this might be the more consistent time moving forward. It seems kind of like the middle ground. There's been challenges because there are people that I want to have on there on the West Coast, and then there are people that I want to have on there on the East Coast, and sometimes it's tough to make timing work out. But this is the time we tend to do it, and we talk about Nintendo, and today's no different. This time what we'll be discussing will have to do with some Metroid rumors, both relating to, well, one having to do with Metroid Prime 4. You may have heard about it already, the whole big and open stuff, but then also some discussion that has surfaced on the sequel to Metroid Dread as well. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be going into a little bit of speculation on another rumor regarding the Nintendo Switch 2, and just overall having a discussion on what secret feature this rumor may be alluding to, or other potential features the Switch 2 may have. And we're also going to be discussing some pretty big news regarding Pokemon. A few different things actually that kind of surfaced this weekend. So one is there being a 19th Teratype now, which is interesting. So we might touch on a little bit of speculation on what that may be. But also, and perhaps more importantly, is some comments from one of the higher ups at Pokemon Company regarding the future of the series and how they're trying to balance their consistent releases while also trying to ensure quality for future releases. And that's basically as close as we're going to get to what it seems a acknowledgement of the criticisms that Scarlet and Violet have received with all of its performance issues and glitches and bugs. So there's a lot to discuss tonight, but to start things off, I would like to introduce our guests. So we got Dylan from Lunatoons. His channel is linked in the description below. Talks about video games across the board, including a lot of Nintendo stuff. Great channel. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
Always good to be on the pod talking Nintendo. Nintendo's my first love. I talk about all things video games, but Nintendo's at the top for me. So it's always good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, for sure. No, I was thinking, man, we're going to talk about Metroid. Oh, wait, Dylan.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be great for Metroid.
You know it.
Yeah.
For the longest time, Zelda was my number one, but Metroid has really been pushing hard to overtake that Zelda spot. And with the direction Zelda's going right now, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, as good as they are, I'm more of like the traditional kind of guy. If Metroid continues this trajectory, I think it's going to be a pretty surefire number one franchise for me as far as Nintendo's concerned. So it's a big deal. I'm always happy to talk Metroid for sure.
Yeah, no, well, we got some good stuff to talk about this time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very curious on your perspective on what's been going on the Metroid front. So, well, we are going to be getting into that very soon. But also, I have my co-host Brandon here as well. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. It's nice to be back on. I missed 2 weeks, unfortunately, but I'm here now, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, so let's do a little bit of Q&A. I'm going to check in with some super chats and some comments, and then how I'm maybe structuring the podcast moving forward. It's a little bit of a shift. I know that we tend to focus on the chat a lot, but what I've noticed lately there's been so much discussion with our guests that I haven't had much opportunity to get into the chat as much as I have in the past, which is partially why I did the live Q&A last Friday. So there's still gonna be Q&A. We're gonna open the show. We're opening the show with Q&A. We're gonna close out the show with Q&A. And depending on time, there may be a little bit more in between topics, but I'm just going to guarantee opening Q&A, closing Q&A. So if you put out a chat or a comment or a super chat or something, I don't get into it, I will try and get to it later into the show. But we're gonna be focusing on the topics to make sure we hit the time, because sometimes we go for too long and then we don't get to everything. So we're gonna try and be a little bit more efficient with time. But if for whatever reason I don't get to your question or comment, I will try and do a second live stream later this week so I can focus more on just Q&A. But yeah, let's check on what's going on in the chat here, and then we'll dive into things. So I see here Koroxy Jr. has renewed their membership and has been a member for 4 straight months. It's been good having you around, Koroxy. Thank you. And Koroxy, not only that, had a super chat as well. Thank you very much. And Koroxy says, I like to always tell you how much I really look forward to these live streams. Thank you for making Mondays not suck as much.
That's nice.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm happy that we are able to help your Mondays not suck as much. So I'm glad that we can do that. I really appreciate that. I mean, I think you just have great taste. So thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. Looking through the chat here, let's see here. Netweed09, greetings all constructs and chozos. It's just so great after Tears, this feeling we can have chill discussions now about the next big things and not worrying about how goated Tears of the Kingdom would be. Yeah, I mean, it's already goated, so there we go. Right? So, yeah.
It's up for debate.
It's up for debate, but for some people, it's the game has a talking goat, and he's the king. He's the original king. How much more goated can you get?
Yeah, you can't get much more goated than he's a godly goat. Divine goat.
Descended from the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
And he married Sonya, so good for him. AB James, you 100% the depths and Tears of the Kingdom. I have not 100% the depths and Tears of the Kingdom.
Got a lot of it, though.
Yeah.
I speculate around 75%.
I've gotten close. I think last week I took a trek down there, and I was able to complete the northeastern part of the depths, and I discovered some cool things there. I think, a lot of people talk about the depths and say it's kind of repetitive, and there is a lot of it that's very similar, but the more you explore, you will find some unique areas that are pretty cool. And I found some neat things up there. By up I mean northeast, but it's down there, right?
Yeah.
I'm still lacking on the northeastern side and the eastern side, like that biggish corner there, like the Hebra area, basically. But otherwise, I'm done with exploring the depths.
My depths map is just a bunch of like islands. I have no connecting path to any of my light routes. It's just a bunch of blotches all over my depths. So it's not very pretty.
Do you have any intention on clearing it up, or do you like the? It's
no,
more like painting for you.
No, I've moved on from Tears of the Kingdom at this point. I don't know if I'll ever go back. Well, we'll see. Maybe someday I'll just get a random itch. I'm like, let's dive back in. But I think my depths will just stay splotchy for now.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we all go at it at different angles. I mean, yeah, like I didn't 100% Tears of the Kingdom, and part of that is because Pikmin 4 came out. So I was like, all right, I gotta play Pikmin 4.
In the year of 2023, when like 2 or 3 fantastic games are coming out per month, it was almost impossible for me to stick with Tears. Like I had a very strict deadline. I was like, all right, I have this long to play Tears of the Kingdom before Final Fantasy 16 comes out, before Diablo 4 takes over my life, so on and so forth. So yeah, I did what I could with what time I had.
For Advance Wars, I was only able to give that game like 5 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
I didn't
Advance Wars
finish
did
even
not
the
do
first
well.
one. Yeah. I'm going to go back. Like I have the intent to go back. Like my intention is to 100% both Pikmin 4 and Tears of the Kingdom within the next few weeks. And at that, actually, because I'm going on vacation at the end of the month, that might be a good chance to do that.
Long plane ride?
Yeah. A little few hours. Going
do a
to
lot
another
of
country.
hours.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope that I'm not just playing games when I'm going to another country for vacation.
Very true.
But I'm sure I'll have
Sometimes you
some
just
downtime.
gotta touch grass.
There will be grass and water and lots of other stuff, so it'll be fun. Yeah. Let's see here. Hey, Joey. Yeah, let's just talk more about the rumors. That's what we're gonna be doing. Just diving deeper into the depths of the Metroid speculation. That is absolutely happening tonight. And I think we're about ready to do that now. I say we just jump into Metroid. Let's just open the show with Metroid.
All right.
So we got 2 Metroid rumors to talk about. Now, one of them I've already discussed before, right? I put a video on it last week, the big and open Metroid stuff. And the other, it's more of news that is stirring up a rumor, and considering other factors, it seems to have a bit more credence now. And that's relating to a sequel to Metroid Dread. So we got 2 different Metroid things to talk about here, but I haven't had the opportunity to talk about. Well, I had a live stream talking about the Metroid rumors, and the Metroid Prime 4 rumor about it being big and open, and I've had a video. I haven't talked about with other people, not in detail. And I really want your takes on this. So let's first talk about the Metroid Prime 4 thing, and then we'll get into the Metroid Dread follow-up sequel, Metroid 6 thing. So the basic explanation of this rumor regarding Metroid Prime 4, right? And just to remind you guys, we had another rumor coming from Andy Robinson, the owner of Video Games Chronicle, from his recent podcast that was about the Switch 2 stuff, that he's heard from a few people apparently that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be the last big Switch game, right? So that there's just a little bit of context there. But the rumor we're talking about here for regarding Metroid Prime 4 is coming from the Xbox Era podcast. And basically, Nick Baker, right, co-owner of Xbox Era, and also co-host for the podcast, they have like a little bit of a rumor mill they do every podcast. And this time there's some Nintendo stuff. He had talked about a potential digital Xbox One X at some point, but also a potential secret feature for Switch 2, which we'll also talk about later into this show. But also Metroid Prime 4. So with Metroid Prime 4, apparently he knows somebody who's seen a clip of Metroid Prime 4. And I'm paraphrasing here, but basically what was said was that from what they saw of Metroid Prime 4, it looks visually unbelievable. And that from what they saw, it looked big and open. But he really wanted to harp on how big and open it looked. Like he wanted to say, like, he acknowledged that, hey, look, he just played Prime Remastered. That has some openish areas, but what we're talking about here is something that's substantially larger. Like, there isn't like a similarity here. Like, it's a grand difference. So to call this big and open, like, he was really emphasizing this. And as for comparison, what was brought up was Halo Infinite, big and open like Halo Infinite. Now, here's an important distinction to make, though. Halo Infinite is an open world game. Yeah. He said he does not think that Metroid Prime 4 is open, but the area still looks so vast that it reminds him of Halo Infinite. So that's just an important distinction. Now, I've seen some people say that the rumor is reporting that, well, it's a rumor, so calling it a report's a little, wishy-washy. But I just want to make the distinction here before we really dive into it, that thinking isn't knowing, right? It may be the case that they made the assumption because it's Metroid that it can't be open. So there's that, or they didn't see enough proof to think it is open. I don't think Metroid should be open. No. So, I'm inclined to agree with what they think, but I just want to make that distinction. We don't know fully what it is they saw, but from what they saw, their thoughts were, this is big and open, kind of like Halo Infinite, and it looks amazing. So that's the rumor.
So it's, first off, it's how great is it that we live in a time where we can have multiple Metroid rumors about multiple games that are potentially in development, or we know Prime 4 obviously is in development. What a time to be a Metroid fan. That's fantastic. Also, like you said, we don't know how much of the game this person saw. It could have been like how long of a sequence did this person watch? Was it a 5 minute, 10 minute, 30 minutes, hours? We don't know. But I find it curious that he related it specifically to Halo Infinite, because there's another game that came out very recently, this year in fact, that I feel like fits the description of an open world Metroid Prime game much better, and that is Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Okay.
If you've played Fallen Order or Survivor, you know that they are Metroidvanias in a lot of ways. There's a ton of Metroidvania elements. And
Fallen
in
Order
Jedi...
2?
What's that?
Fallen Order 2?
Yeah, Fallen Order
Okay.
definitely has some Metroidvania stuff going on.
Well, the
And,
first one's a different. It's what's it called?
Fallen Order and Survivor?
It's Jedi Survivors, the new one.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And Survivor is the one that I think relates to this rumor a little bit better, because there's a hub planet of Kobo where you this is where you're going to spend a lot of your time, but the planet of Kobo itself is pretty darn open world. Like, I would consider the planet of Kobo to be open world. And, you know, it's one of those things where you're standing on the edge of a cliff, you look off in the distance and you see a place you want to go to. Yeah, you can probably get there. And as you walk around this planet, you're going to pass by a bunch of obstacles, gates, doors that you can't get through until you unlock new force abilities or upgrade BD1 or what have you. So a lot of Metroidvania stuff, you're going to have to backtrack to this planet to open up a lot of different pathways. But like I said, the planet of Kobo itself is open. But branching off of the planet are your more linear corridor-style pathways, as well as surrounding planets that you can visit. And each of those surrounding planets are kind of linear pathways as well. So it kind of does both. There's like a big open hub world to explore, but then once you start doing like the main quest lines and stuff, it then it funnels you into kind of a corridor style level or chapter.
okay.
So I feel like if you just swap out Cal Kestis for Samus in Survivor, I think that would actually work out pretty well. It kind of scratches both itches without going too far in either direction. And so, yeah, I was kind of surprised they said Halo Infinite, because, I mean, how are you going to say it reminds you of Halo Infinite, but it's not open world when Halo Infinite is the exact thing that an open world is, you know? I don't know if he's just talking about the vistas or the feeling, like he felt like it was so open.
It is an Xbox era podcast, right? So they're very Xbox centric, right? So I mean, Halo Infinite is like a bigger deal for them, right? Like when you watch that podcast, you'll see Halo Infinite in the background, like
for sure,
it's important
yeah.
for them, right?
That's probably at the top of his mind too,
yeah.
But I think Survivor is a great explanation to me. That when I read that rumor, when I heard about it, I was like, that sounds a lot like a Jedi Survivor to me. So I feel like if they go that direction, they actually work out pretty well.
Yeah, I've played Fallen Order, but I've not played Survivor.
Fallen Order is much more linear from beginning to end, but Fallen Order has that big, there's like NPCs roaming around that you can find, little side quests, little side activities to do in the open world of Kobo. But then, once you do like the main quest stuff, it leads you down like the more linear pathways.
Interesting. I haven't played on Survivor.
Really cool.
It's been on my to-do list.
Same. I really want to play it.
Very long to-do list.
It's so good. It's very, very good. Aside from the bugs and some of the technical stuff,
that's when I want to play it on PC.
Yeah. I guess I'm just looking. I just Google and looking at images. I don't see anything that looks like super vast. So that's where I guess I'll have to play it to really
maybe look at I don't know, maybe Google like the overworld map of Kobo or something. Maybe that zoomed out perspective will show you. But it's a 3D map though, so maybe not.
what should I type in? I have Jedi Survivor on my Google.
Oh no, maybe like Jedi Survivor world map Kobo. It's KOBO, I believe. Let's see if I can help you out.
Okay.
I'll search some stuff too.
I see a map. And you know what? Looking at this map, it looks kind of like the Metroid Prime map, where there's kind of like
definitely it's that 3D style Metroid map that you. Yeah.
Let me see if I can share my Google search with you guys, so you kind of have an idea what we're talking about. Oh, there we go. So you guys see Yeah, you guys see what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
now.
so what you're looking at there, like you have the green section, the blue section, and the yellow. That's all the same world right there. So that's all open area that you can explore.
This entire section is all open.
All the green, the blue, and the yellow. Everything you're
Okay.
seeing in that image is all open and connected without like any linear pathways.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. All right. That makes a little bit more sense, right? So, but how is it? I guess. Are you saying each section is connected seamlessly, or there's some like loading that happen? Like
No, there's no loading or anything. All of that is one big area.
So what makes it not open world? This is not the entire map. Is it just one?
No, that's not the entire map. If you zoomed out further, you may see some branching pathways, and then as I said, there are other planets that you can travel to that are from beginning to end linear. So once you travel to another planet, really Kobo, that little open section there, is the only open world portion of the game. Everything else is that corridor style.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm. And as you unlock different abilities doing the main quest, you then go back to Kobo and be like, all right, I can force pull this grate off and I can go explore inside this sewer system now. I can force push these rocks out of the way and now I can progress down this branch, Mm-hmm. And there's bounty hunters to find. There's different loot and lightsabers and different, cosmetics and stuff. Boss battles, different aliens.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think it's one of those things where I have to play the game to really get a good feel.
I could say so. Yeah, the images you're looking at right here don't really sum it up well.
Yeah.
No. It's hard to really get a sense of scale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that all said, they're just kind of like considering what this is like. Is this something that seems surprising to you guys? Is this something that seems believable?
I think it could definitely work. Like I said, I think if they did what I'm thinking of, I think I'd be down for that. Now, if they went full open world, no. And as you said, I don't think any of us feel like Metroid should be full open world. But I recall when I was playing Survivor, I was like, man, this feels like an open world Metroid game in a lot of ways, and I think they nailed it pretty well. I guess it's believable. Again, we need more context though, because we don't know how much of the game this person saw.
Yeah.
Did
they see 30 seconds?
He may have seen a freaking screenshot or like a quick glance, it's big,
If you only see 30 seconds, there's a lot of games that might look open world because it's just a large section. Yeah. Right.
And I think the fun thing to think about, if it truly has some open areas, is like, what do we do for traversal? Do we have mounts?
I'd have to imagine that Samus would be faster.
Faster. You could use her boosters. She could use her grappling hook.
her grapple hook in Metroid Prime 3 in the Sky Town. You could ride zip lines to different sky islands, which is pretty cool. And after a certain point, when you unlock the screw attack, you can just use the screw attack to go from one sky island to another. So you there's a little bit of flying. So it's kind of cool actually. And thinking on it, I remember who was it I had the discussion with about. Oh right, I think we talked about in the Q&A on Friday. I think Giancarlo brought it up actually. I don't know. Shout out to Giancarlo if you're in the chat. But Metroid Prime 3 had some kind of. I don't want to say there was a lot more map to explore necessarily, but it seemed a little bit more expanded. So I would imagine Prime 4 is going to seem a lot more expanded, and that can be fun. But I do think that they are going to have to kind of think of ways to in terms of how Samus is going to move around the world, totally.
I would like there to be more parkour elements and more platforming just in general. I think would be fun. I mean, if you have more open spaces, especially if Samus can run fast, I think some kind of boost mechanic would also be fun. I'm not sure, but
yeah, hit her boosters. You could utilize her gunship to get around. I want some gunship combat in Prime 4. Doesn't have much to do with the open world. I don't know. Maybe they could throw in some stuff. You can ride around
have
the open world in your
scripted
ship.
sequences.
Yeah, but that'd be clean. I don't know. I almost want to ride with this rumor and be like, yeah, sure. And then if it's not, that's fine too.
Yeah,
So,
I
I'm
mean,
kinda
I don't
cool
want
either
it
way.
to be like Halo Infinite and like fully open, but if it's something
No.
like Jedi Survivor, I'd be really down for that. Because I do think they're definitely going to be like obviously bigger areas. Because Prime, I mean, I was all the way back on the GameCube, and the individual rooms are quite small. And I would imagine they would want to make at least boost those, even if they're going for the same kind of corridor, split room kind of kind of thing, which they don't even have to do anymore because they have much more powerful hardware. Even if they're going to do that, I think they would expand the rooms to be much larger. But I think they're going to go with something a bit more seamless, but not quite open world or anything.
Yeah, and the other part of that rumor to comment on is the fact that it looked beautiful, and I think that doesn't come as a surprise to anybody.
Oh no.
With the remaster, but I mean, if we're talking next generation hardware as well, which I feel like it's going to be cross platform.
I agree.
If they obviously there's a discussion of, well, would the Switch version of the game be holding back the next generation version? And yeah, there's an argument to be had there. But regardless, even if they were just building it from the ground up for the Switch, I still think it'd be absolutely gorgeous with what Retro did for the remaster. So either way, I mean, I'm so excited to see what the visuals and textures and everything, how everything interacts in Prime 4. It's going to be jaw-dropping.
Yeah. I imagine the Switch, like the base Switch version, is going to look good, and then the Switch 2 version is going to look stunning. But I think the Switch version will look very good. It's going to be a very good version of the game. I don't think they're going to make it 30 FPS or super low resolution or anything like that. It might be lower resolution than Prime Remaster just because I think it's going to be doing a lot more because the game's going to be probably bigger than that game. But I don't think it's going to be a game where you're like, man, this looks terrible. I really want to play it on the Switch 2. But I do think the Switch 2 version is going to be so good you might just be like, it looks good on the Switch, but it looks real good on the Switch too. So I trust Retro Studios to push whatever hardware they're launching on.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Hold on here. Let me see if I can. Okay. All right. I found an article that might be interesting, and shout outs to who was in the chat, Captain Doge, pointing out that Prime 3 was originally proposed as an open world. So Prime 3, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, would be the last brand new Metroid Prime game in the series that came out back in 2007. There was Trilogy that compiled all three games together in one and had some different little improvements and enhancements and changes and had all three together with Wii controls. But the last actual brand new entry was Prime 3 in 2007. It is apparently true that at one point they were considering open world elements for Metroid Prime 3. So let me go back to this article from Eurogamer, pretty good source on this, right? So headline, Nintendo didn't want an open world Metroid Prime 3 because it didn't know what bounty hunting was. So apparently they had at one point this concept of making Prime 3 open world, but they shied away from it because it may have involved Samus bounty hunting around. But let's go into what was said here. So some of this comes from some research from Digino Gaming. Anyway, so here's part of the quote. We were not proposing in any way, shape, or form, even in our wildest dreams, we would have like Metroid Prime Skyrim. We were not talking about 200-hour side quests or anything like that. More precisely, it was the ability for the player to operate out of a hub area and to go onto different missions that didn't necessarily lend themselves directly to a normal path progression that a Metroid Prime game was known for, as far as traversal, retraversal, and so forth. Samus had the ability to step outside of that and do more things on the side. So, interesting.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, I'll probably want to do a little bit more digging into this because I don't think I ever read this article. Nor if I did, it was years ago and I barely remember. Actually, it's not even that old of an article. It's from last year, like a year and a half ago. Not even. April 2022. So it's just kind of interesting considering that, right? So they at one point there's already, if you look at the development, right, the history of this development here of Prime 3, like they already had some ideas to kind of expand exploration. And what's really, really kind of unfortunate about this story is that it sounded like they wanted Prime 3 to not be so straight up linear, And something about Prime 3 compared to Primes 1 and 2 is that it's more linear and handholdy than the other two games. This concept they had would have kind of alleviated that quite a bit. It's almost like they wanted to take it in the opposite direction. So what's interesting about this is that maybe some of these concepts and ideas can translate over into Prime 4, right? Like maybe what they were saying open world for Prime 3 would have been more like Prime 4. And you kind of mentioned like with the Jedi game, right? That it had kind of like a large hub area.
Yeah.
Not too different from what that article was maybe suggesting there.
I think it would lend itself really well, actually. Again, in Jedi Survivor, as you're going around like that hub area, you would get random bounty encounters. In that game, there are bounty hunters after you, and if you kind of tiptoe into like the wrong area, a large bounty hunter will just like appear out of nowhere and just start attacking you, like a surprise attack. And they get a big like boss health bar at the top, and you have to do battle to take them down. Same goes for large creatures. You actually like in the hub area, you go to town, you can get bounties for like these big alien creatures. You go out into the open world, you have to track them down, find them, and kill them to collect the bounty and stuff. So I think little things like that would actually lend itself really well to the Metroid franchise and give Samus that bounty hunter feel in a lot of ways. Well, of course, we don't know what the story is going to be, but I'm sure you can warp it to kind of fit that in some way.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, like I was, this kind of goes to some of the speculation I threw out earlier, like last week. But like, imagine a circumstance where Samus goes to the planet, right? Whatever the source issue is, right? Like where the setting of this game takes place. And hypothetically, just to keep things simple, let's say it happens on one planet. We can envision other ways it could be done, but let's just say for one planet for now, right? And maybe on the surface, there's like a large plot of land, like an open a hub area, right? Like maybe like the equivalent to town form Prime 1, but it's very expanded, and there's different areas, but it's all interconnected, one large openish area, and there's different things going on there, right? Maybe there are multiple crashed ships. Maybe there are some Federation troopers that have survived. Maybe there are some space pirate camps, and there are maybe even some other third parties as well. Maybe some hunters are there. Maybe, so different like species and creatures and things going on. Point is, like, there are some semblances of community on the surface, and on the surface there is an open area to explore, but this area is actually more like a hub area that lends itself or leads itself in different directions that can take you deeper into the planet, where more of that traditional style of Metroidvania gameplay in 3D occurs. And as you progress deeper and deeper, you'll find that these areas are more interwoven, and one can lead to another. And that's kind of like more like that Metroid style of gameplay that's underground. Right. There's the claustrophobia, there's the corridors. There may still be some large cavities underground that can be like large openish areas, but maybe like only on the surface there's kind of like this hub area that's more of that big open thing that you'll consistently go back and forth to for whatever reason or another. And maybe that could be the structure, right? So you may see a part, like maybe they saw that clip, right? And that's what looked like Halo Infinite. It's like a sci-fi shooter. You see sprawling green fields and mountains, and that's just kind of like the beginning area of, the hub area is probably better because you go back and forth between it, right? It's not just the beginning, but it's all throughout. But like that, maybe that's what they saw.
Yeah, you could start in that hub area, like maybe like a town or a village or something that you constantly go back to. You get your mission. You go off into that branching pathway. At the end of that pathway, you get an upgrade. Then you use that upgrade to get back out into the hub area again. And then once you're in that hub area, you can unlock a new path and then go back down, back out, down, back out. And then, of course, you can use your gunship to go to different planets and stuff, change up the environments and whatnot. It sounds pretty nice to me. I'm down for it.
Yeah. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, totally. Before we get to the Metroid Dread stuff, I can continue to talk about this. I could continue. But kind of speaking on the point of it being visually unbelievable, there is a thought that's kind of crossed my mind here. Assuming it's still for Switch, which I believe it will still be for Switch. I acknowledge that there's a likelihood it's going to be cross-gen in some way, shape, or form. I think that does make sense. and I probably would want it on a Switch too. I want to play this thing in 4K, 60 FPS, whatever it takes. But something that occurs to me that is, if there are these large, expansive areas, big and open as they suggested, right? And this is still utilizing the visuals that we saw in Prime Remastered, which were very intense visuals, right? Like a lot of people made the argument, myself included, that it is one of the best looking games on Switch. Like if you don't think it's the best looking game, it's probably top 5 for you, right? Like, or top 10 if you hate good looking things. But point is, it's a very good looking game for Switch, right? Like I think we all can at least agree on that. And a part of what makes Prime Remastered look so good is that they're utilizing physical based lighting, which is not something you see on a lot of Switch games. And yet it still has all these redone assets and geometry and textures, and it's running at 60 frames per second. And so what we have is something that's just incredible. But now take that still at 60 frames per second, because that is the performance standard across the board for Metroid games, especially the Metroid Prime games. And then add in large, expansive, open areas. And then they say, like, can that
be tough?
Like, if right, like that it does have me scratching my head. Is it if will maybe the Switch version be gimped down to 30, but they can get away with it because the Switch 2 version will be at 60? Or will they maybe give it like a lower resolution or something? I'm not sure. Right? They said it's visually unbelievable, and we don't know what version they're looking at. That was never clarified. Now I would assume it's a Switch version, just because Switch 2, like I don't know, right? But it's hard to say for certain. But but the overall point is that if what we're hearing is true, and this is for Switch, we may be talking about like the hands down, no dispute, straight up most technically impressive Switch game by far. Because if Prime Remastered is already in that conversation, and then you put something that's more modern, newer, more cool things going on, and it's big and expansive at 60 frames per second.
I mean, we can look back to the last major cross-gen game, Breath of the Wild, from the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch. I played the Wii U version. I did not have a Nintendo Switch at the time Breath of the Wild came out. And that game freaking chugged a lot. I actually, in preparation for Tears of the Kingdom, I turned on my Wii U. I plugged Breath of the Wild back in. I was playing. I was like, oh my God, I am glitching all over the place. The frames drop like crazy. And I played a little bit of the Switch, but not enough to make a definitive comparison. You feel like, did it chug too much on the Switch?
Everyone
it's
has
pretty much just certain areas.
So I mean, I think it is fair then if we just use that small isolated example that if it is cross-gen, and maybe the Switch version would be held back a little bit or have some more technical issues, whereas the next generation version would be perfect and clean and much better.
I don't know.
Something's got to give. You would think, right? Like you would think.
I mean,
maybe
if you want to look at another game on Switch that uses physical-based rendering or lighting, I mean, Pikmin 4 uses that, but it's 30 FPS, but it has bigger, more open environments than something like Prime.
Sounds like a question for NVG.
It runs at quite a high resolution. It's like a dynamic 1080p. So I'm curious, maybe they'll do like a fairly low resolution, something like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, where it's running at like 480p or 540p, even in dock mode, but it's upscaling to a much higher resolution and looks much nicer. I think that would be acceptable.
Yeah.
Try to get 60 FPS with that.
Yeah, I think 60 FPS kind of needs to be done. Like, because
I think that is the baseline for them. I don't see Retro Studios releasing a game on that 60 FPS on one version and then
I'm trying to be quiet.
30 FPS on the original Switch.
Say it again, Brandon, the last part.
I just don't think Retro Studios can release a game that runs at 60 on the new Switch and 30 on the old Switch. I just don't think they would do that.
It just seems to go against
I think they've been optimizing this game for Switch from the beginning. Like, even if they were aware of the next gen, I don't think this started as a next gen project. This started as a Switch project. They've been the goal from development has been 60 FPS on Switch, I would assume, from the get-go. And then they factored in Switch 2.
This is true.
Yeah. So
I get what you're saying. I mean, it doesn't necessarily even have to be locked 30. It could be variable frame rates as well, just depending on what area you're in or what you're doing on the screen. Frame rates can go up and down all the time. They can be very fluid. They can shoot for 60 and try to make
but
that
not
be.
in a Retro Studios game.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. They have a track record of hitting 60.
So like
and
what
staying
they
at 60,
what they
but-
do is
Yeah.
like if they can't do it in 60, they don't do it.
Yeah, see, like other developers, I would totally agree. But Retro Studios in particular, I don't think they've ever done a game that like drops frames.
Yeah.
It's tough. If something's gonna give, it's gonna be the resolution, not the frame rate.
I would
That's
assume.
how I would like it anyways. So.
Yeah. I'm also just gonna believe that they are going to make the most technically impressive Switch game. I'm ready for them to just blow my mind. Like, you thought Pikmin 4 looked good, you thought Luigi's Mansion looked good, you thought Tears of the Kingdom looked good, you thought Prime Remastered looked good. Just you wait, Prime 4, from a technical perspective, it is going to be the ultimate swan song. That's what I believe. That's what this rumor has me thinking. So it's just gonna be incredible. But in the interest of time, I want to talk about the other Metroid thing going on right now. And I had a little bit of. It was a little tricky for me to go back and find the sourcing on this, but I found it. I've covered this before, but it's kind of like whenever you want to find like old stuff, the new stuff takes priority in Google search, so it's a little harder to find it. But anyway, so this was going on. Okay, so it seems like that we're probably going to get a follow-up to Metroid Dread. The best-selling Metroid game of all time. And also the game that won Best Action Game in 2021, the Game Awards. That game. So basically, we have heard from the latest earnings from Nordisk Games that who has a minority stake in the developer Mercury Steam, that they're working on 2 large undisclosed titles. They're working on 2. And recently there was some discussions that, since they're working on this project that's not Metroid Dread, then that's all they're working on. But the thing is, you look at the history of Mercury Steam's development history, they work on more than one game at a time. This isn't really anything too crazy, but since they're working on 2, it does lend one to think, okay, so there is something else they're working on right now. And what's interesting about this is that it kind of reminds you of a rumor that came out a little while back, coming from N. Weedle, that's saying that Mercury Steam is working on another 2D Metroid game that's due to come out in 2025. And I find this very interesting. Because this same source is apparently the same source that said that a Metroid Dread was coming out in 2021 for Switch before that was confirmed. And I gotta double check this part, but I'm under the impression that they were also someone who, because I made a video about this not too long ago, that they also were talking about there being dev kits out there in Spain. And interestingly, thanks to both Eurogamer and Video Games Chronicle, that idea of there being dev kits out there at this stage has been corroborated. So it kind of increases the overall credence of what may be going on with this Metroid Dread rumor, because it seems to support the source on the whole Metroid Dread thing. And since now we know Mercury Steam is working on multiple big projects, when you consider that and just sense that it makes for them to be making another Metroid Dread game, considering how successful it was for them. Most developers don't, especially a developer that size, having a game that sells 3+ million copies. Of course, they're going to do another one like that. That's my perspective on it. So I'm thinking, we're probably going to get a new 2D Metroid. Maybe it's going to be called Metroid 6, which would be a sequel to Dread. Maybe it's another remake. I don't know what, but something in the vein of Metroid Dread is being Mercury Steam. It looks like, and I think it's coming out, as the rumor from a few months ago suggested, by 2025. I mean, maybe they push it up a little bit depending on how things go for Prime 4, but that's kind of a perspective on everything that's going on around this. What do you guys think?
By 2025, do you mean the end of 2024 or the end of 2025?
By the end of 2025,
okay,
there would be I understand what you're saying there. So sometime in 2025, think Metroid Dread 2, Metroid 6, whatever you want to call it, will come out.
Gotcha.
Or at least it's in the works, and that's what they're aiming for. Because you know how development is and how things can change. But the point is that we're in 2025. We would assume we'd be close, provided there's not any sort of major mishaps.
Gotcha.
I think that lines up from a timeline perspective as well. Dread came out October 2021. Give it 4 years for a 2D side-scroller game. I think that's very feasible. For a game like Mercury Steam that's got several Metroid games under their belt now, they're obviously very trusted. They know what they're doing. So yeah, it sounds perfectly logical to me. Metroid Dread, best-selling Metroid game, over 3 million copies. No doubt they're going to want to make another one. Makes perfect sense to me.
I
mean, they made one after.
Returns. Sorry, I was just going to add that Samus Returns came out holiday 2017, so it does look like 4-year gaps between 2D Metroids.
Yeah.
But I mean, they followed up Samus Returns that did not sell particularly amazing, and Dread actually sold really well for the series, so I would definitely think they would follow that up.
Yeah, Samus Returns kind of got shafted with its release timing and the console they released it on.
Nobody wanted to play on the 3DSs anymore. The new shiny Switch just launched.
Yeah.
It also makes sense from a perspective of having content ready for Switch 2. Like games that come out early in a system's life cycle tend to enjoy that evergreen effect more, right? So getting out Metroid early on, that may bode well for the future of the series. So if they already know that the Metroid Dread formula is going to slap, get another one going, they probably could maybe outdo 3 million, assuming the Switch 2 has similar success. You know what? The thing is, the Switch 2 doesn't even have to have similar success. The Switch 2 doesn't even have to have similar success to the Switch for the Metroid Dread Fall to do better. Because it's simply coming out earlier in the system's life cycle. If Switch 2 is at least maybe like 60 to 75% as successful as Switch, I think Metroid Dread 2, I'm just calling it that for now. I know that's not going to be the name, but I think there's a really good chance that it could probably eclipse the 3 million. So just getting it out early on a successful system, I think that'll do really well.
Yeah, I mean, unless the concept for the Switch 2 is completely bonkers out there, I think it's going to sell out like crazy all over the place, riding the coattails of the success of the Switch. And then at that point, it's about attach rate. And when a fresh new console is out, people don't even care what games are out. They just want to play a game on that console. Yeah. And so, if Metroid 6 is the most nearby and easiest available game to play, people will want to check it out. So yeah, I do agree with that. It doesn't have to be over 100 million units sold for it to sell over 3 million copies.
I mean, the Wii sold over 100 million systems, and Metroid Prime 3 only sold 1 million.
Ouch.
Yeah. And GameCube sold like 21 million systems, and Metroid Prime 2 sold like 500,000, and then Prime 1 sold 2.5, right? So it's not necessarily how many systems are out there. Yeah. It's how many people who would buy Metroid that have the system are out there.
Right.
And I mean, if you think that Prime 4 is going to be cross-gen, a lot of people with Switch 2 are going to check out that one, and then maybe they'd be hungry for more Metroid. Then a year later, here comes Metroid 6. And at that point, NSO will hopefully have all of the Metroid games available. Or do they already? Has Nintendo Switch Online introduced all of the previous Metroid games yet?
Metroid 1 and 2 are available. Super Metroid, I'm pretty sure, is available. Metroid
it definitely
Fusion, yep, I think so.
I think everything.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to want the remakes of Metroid 1.
I don't think we have Zero Mission, though.
I don't think we have Zero Mission yet. And obviously, the Samus Returns is not on there either. So
no, or Other M.
I liked Other M, actually.
I liked it, yeah. I mean, if we're just talking about 2D Metroid, I guess Other M's like a hybrid.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Prime. But yeah,
I wouldn't call Other M a Prime. I'd call Other M
I would call it a Prime in the sense that like a side adventure.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
fair,
it's like in between the 2Ds.
Yeah, I got you.
All that makes sense to me. It sounds like everything that was said in that rumor is almost so obvious to me that I feel like I would feel good putting that rumor out there. You know, I mean, like, oh yeah, I heard this from some developer that, you know, Prime Metroid 6 is under development. It's going to come out in 2025.
It's a pretty good game.
Yeah, it's someone could make it up, and I'd be like, yep, that sounds about right to me.
It's very logical. Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes sense. So, but going just to kind of put a ribbon on this Metroid Prime. We could talk about Metroid all night. So if you bring something about Metroid, I'm not going to ignore it, right? But just to put this out there, because I'm curious on what you guys think, because I'm still trying to sort this out myself. Andy Robinson has indicated that 3D Mario is going to be a launch title for the Switch 2. So with that being launch title, if Prime 4 is supposed to be the last big Switch game, and Switch 2 is supposed to come out next year with 3D Mario, where does that put Prime 4? Like, what are we talking about here? If Prime 4 is also going to be cross-gen, which we don't have any sources on that. We just think it makes sense, right? It just seems like a good decision to make.
I mean, it may not
be.
It may not be cross-gen in the sense that they launched the same day and date with the version on both, but they may launch it on the Switch like earlier in the year, and then have a patch version on the Switch 2 that you can upgrade to or get for free, hopefully.
Yeah, I would like to see a opportunity for Metroid Prime 4 to kind of have its time in the limelight, not competing with the 3D Mario side by side.
Yeah.
That said, you can have multiple awesome games at launch. You want to have multiple great games at the launch of a new system. And, you know, 3D Mario's, none Mario games aren't that long. You know, it's 15 hours, anywhere between 10 to 20 hours. You know, you can kind of wrap it up. Now, granted, if you want to collect all the stars or all the moons or whatever, yeah, you could put in hundreds of hours. But I think you get what I'm saying. The casual, the general audience will play 3D Mario. You're done with it. All right, let's move on to the next one. Oh, great. Here's Prime 4. Like, let's do it. So I don't think it would like mark the end of Prime 4 if they happen to come out together. I don't know if I call it ideal, because like I said, as a Metroid fan, I want Prime 4 to have every opportunity to sell as much as possible. But I also don't think it'd be like the end of the world either. Yeah, so that would be tough though.
Just to make sure, like, are you saying come out like the same day or same?
There's a lot of different ways to approach it. Like Brandon said, you could have the Switch version come out in a few months, and then when the Switch 2 launches, say, all right, here's your upgrade path, or straight up, knowing Nintendo, they'd be like, all right, here's a $70 Switch 2 version.
Oh, God.
You know? So if they did that,
then Deluxe.
Right. Then Prime 4 would have its moment, and then, you know, if you want to pay more for the upgrade path or whatever, then you can do that, and that's all well and good. If they come out day and date, Switch version and the Switch 2 version at the exact same time, I feel like that would be more detrimental to Prime 4 than the first option. But again, I don't think it'd be a death sentence either, because when you launch, like I said, when you launch a new console, you want to have multiple great games. You don't want to just put all your eggs in one basket, even though that basket is a 3D Mario, which is sure to do well. I think as a Nintendo, when you launch a new console, you're going to want to have multiple great games, you know, for a bunch of different types of gamers as well.
Also, if that 3D Mario is exclusive to the Switch 2, you can sell to the entirety of the original Switch base, which didn't get that game. So they get Prime 4 on the original Switch, but you're not really competing with the 3D Mario if it's not on that system.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more I think about it, I would say that if I'm going to make a bet, I'm going to bet. Oh man, this is tough. I'm going to make this bet and I'm going to be wrong.
You're trying to predict Nintendo, so good luck.
Right. Yeah. I see two trajectories. Okay. One trajectory is that Prime 4 comes out in the first half of 2024, so maybe like a March to May kind of game, right? So in other words, we get a big blowout in this upcoming September Direct, right? And it's obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but I think it would be a Switch game, and then they just release a upgrade patch, enhancement, game of the year edition, something like that, a little bit later down the road after Switch 2 launches.
Right.
A few months afterwards. One or
Oh.
two. At least one. Well, I just don't. I mean, I think you have 3D
It's
Mario
possible.
take the focus, right? Like, I think 3D Mario has to be the day one launch title. I agree with
To be
that.
fair, not every game on Series X and PlayStation 5 got upgrades like day one or anything. So
Yeah. We want a day one, but is that likely? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
So that's one trajectory I see. The other trajectory I see is that Switch 2 launches, and I think when we hear second half of 2024, maybe it's the optimist in me, but I'm kind of thinking that holiday 2024 isn't necessarily, like, I don't think it has to come out like November. I'm thinking the Switch 2 comes out like maybe September or
yeah,
October.
no, I don't think it would come out in November, honestly. I think September or October are more likely.
And in that scenario, right, 3D Mario is the launch title. So let's just to be really optimistic here. Let's say it comes out September, right, with 3D Mario. Then they have October, November, December to still put out a few more games to kind of fill up the lineup. And let's say October is maybe the launch month for Metroid Prime 4. Maybe it's divided by like 5 or 6 weeks or so, or so. Like, so there's a healthy gap between 3D Mario and Prime 4. So then they're more likely to get some sales there, especially because 3D Mario will be exclusive to Switch 2. So, that way the people who have Switch will only have the option of Prime 4. They won't have the option of 3D Mario. So that'll also help it out a little bit. But it comes out as a cross-gen title in that window. And that would make a lot of sense to me. I think that would fit really well. But it's kind of like both scenarios, I'm sort of assuming something comes out earlier than maybe others are expecting. So maybe both are wrong. I don't know. But those are kind of the two scenarios I sort of see that I think make sense.
Yeah, I've been thinking for a while that it would launch in September, October, and not November. But I could be wrong. It's just been my gut feeling for a long time.
Heck, I'll even throw this out. I'd be okay with Prime 4 coming out November if Pokemon comes out October. Just to kind of.
Oh, God, I didn't even think about Pokemon.
Yeah, because
that's a whole other range.
That always happens. Like, Pokemon always happens. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. But because I believe that those three games are probably gonna be like the big three holiday titles, or the big three games that are coming out next year from Nintendo. I'm sure there's gonna be other surprises, but that's kind of my expectations on that. But before we stop in with and check with the chat for a moment, is there anything else you guys want to add on this Metroid stuff?
Just that Metroid 2: The Return of Samus was incredible for its time. Truly remarkable. That's for you, Super Metal Dave.
Oh man. So when I tweeted out about the podcast earlier today, I put two several times. I said we're gonna be talking about two Metroid 2 rumors and then also about Switch 2. I said we're gonna talk about Metroid 2 rumors. Two of them. So yeah, Samus Returns is getting ported to Switch, and then
I actually like that.
And they're gonna add new content to it as well.
Full remake, Mercury Steam. Let's do it.
Dude, what if? I'd be kind of upset that they would, that would be their new project, but I'd rather that get outsourced. If anything, because it's already been remade. Just give it better HD textures or something.
Yeah, I wonder if they have HD textures for the game on file. Because depending on their workflow, they may have rendered things in HD and then downscaled it to work on the 3DS. So they may have HD assets for everything, and they could just rework it.
All right, I'm expanding the Metroid topic a little bit. Because this is kind of sending me down a direction, right? You know how we get consistent Zelda stuff, and it's kind of like Nintendo's holding back certain things so they can kind of make sure we have consistent Zelda content. For example, we know that they're sitting on Twilight. We believe strongly, but they're sitting on Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD,
certainly.
Right? And they're waiting for a dark rainy day. We're like, damn it, we got nothing Zelda. Let's send those out. I'm going to venture to guess that Nintendo wants to do something similar with Metroid. We've been kind of enjoying a bit of a Metroid renaissance, right? So Metroid Dread 2021. Then there was the DLC update for Metroid Dread early 2022. And Prime 2 Remastered was rumored for holiday 2022, but was pushed off to February 2023, which isn't that much later, right? And now supposedly Prime 4 is going to be a big deal next year, right? And then there's also the Prime 2 and 3 stuff but maybe Prime 2 comes out this September as a shadow drop. It's rumored.
And man, if Prime 4 had made its initial expected release date, dude, it would have been bang, 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 like several Metroids in like a 3 year, 3 years in a row or something with Metroid. But
it's crazy. Yeah. And what's interesting, though, how things may shake out is that we'll get Prime 2 and 3 maybe before Prime 4 comes out sometime next year, which also kind of like leads me to believe that maybe, second half of 2024 makes more sense so they can get 2 and 3 out in a respectable kind of window if they are going to be separate, as some rumors are suggesting. But then, we get Prime 4, and the rumors are true about this Metroid Dread follow-up that comes out 2025. Okay, great. Well, then what happens in 2026? Right? Like, hey, we got this Samus Returns HD remaster. Here you go. Maybe that's like the 2027 thing, but you get my point. Like, they could have stuff, maybe they have Prime 4 DLC.
Metroid Prime Pinball.
I would be all in.
I like pinball.
That's a game I've wanted to play forever, and I've wanted to buy a copy off eBay, but it's like well over $100, and I don't want to play pinball that bad.
No.
Yeah, that's a little much.
Mm-hmm.
Little much.
I'll have to jailbreak my 3DS at some point and finally play it.
All right. So let's check with the chat real quick, and then we'll move on to the next topic. All right. So a couple. All right, so Taker610 with a super chat from earlier. Thank you very much for that super chat, buddy. Taker610 says, Gamescom around the corner. What could be there? Well, I'm expecting nothing crazy. I do expect Switch 2 rumors, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't have a lot of guesses, to be honest with you.
I'm not really too familiar with Gamescom, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I don't think they ever really release or announce anything there. Really,
there's been speculation that Switch 2 would be announced at Gamescom. What I think is probably going to happen is there will probably be some developers talking to other developers that may or may not include Nintendo stuff about Switch 2. And so from Gamescom, we may get some little bits and details that will be unofficial stuff, like rumors. And
gotcha.
So it may be fun. It may be fun for speculation, but I'm not thinking we're getting any major reveals during Gamescom. I just think so. It's if Switch 2 was going to come out like early next year, then I would think that they would want to announce it soon. But I don't think Switch 2 is coming out early next year at this stage.
I don't think they would announce it at Gamescom regardless. I think they would do their own presentation.
Right. So I think when I talk about the possibility of Switch 2 getting announced around Gamescom, it would be around Gamescom, not at Gamescom. And maybe it could be on display or something. Like maybe
gotcha.
I mean, we're already so close. Already, like I have strong doubt.
When is Gamescom?
It's just like, I mean, it's like a
August 23rd through August 27th.
No. Oh, there you go. 23rd to the 27th. Thank you.
This month. Does Nintendo usually have a presence at Gamescom? I mean, could they potentially touch on games?
The last time they were at Gamescom was 2019.
Oh, okay.
Where they had Switch Lite on display and several games to discuss.
Yeah, they could show off some of like the Princess Peach game or something if they wanted to follow up on that last Direct. More Mario RPG stuff. I don't know if they just wanted to.
I think maybe Mario Wonder and Mario RPG. Like I think that's
I
mean, Mario Wonder, it's gonna be a multiplayer game. I think it'd be actually a great game to have at the show because people will be there, play it together. Like it'll be a talk.
I mean, that is pretty much like their big holiday game.
Yeah. I'd love to be actually, I honestly don't want anything to come out of Gamescom because I have vacation at the end of the month. So I would be done for. I wouldn't be able to cover it.
Too much work.
I wouldn't be able to cover it. I would actually I would love to cover it, but I wouldn't be able to because I'd be in another country. So
dang.
Yeah. I'm gonna get like some videos like done beforehand, and maybe I'll bring my laptop in case something pops up. I could like jump on, on microphone or something. But most of my videos will be pre-recorded. But I'm hoping nothing happens at Gamescom. I don't think anything will be at Gamescom, but if it does, that's great for the world, just not for me. So, Yeah, King's Frost with a little super sticker there. Thank you very much, King's Frost. I do appreciate that. I also love your giant ice blue dragon icon. I think it's cool. So, yeah. Let's see here. That we don't know. Yeah, September is definitely most likely for the big reveal, but Gamescom will still a chance for that swimming pool backflip. Right. He's alluding to the fact that I said that if Switch 2 gets announced soon and Prime 4 is showing off, I will do a backflip, which I've never done before in my life.
You've never done a backflip?
No, I'm too scared of cracking my head. Like it's like an innate thing. Like I don't do
Backflips
certain things.
Okay,
listen, buddy. Maybe for you it's easier, but I am not going to break my head.
I forget which one's easier, backflips or front flips. I think it might be front flips.
Front flips are easier, but I gotta say, if you're gonna do a backflip, you have to fully commit. You cannot half-ass a backflip. That's how you get hurt.
That's exactly why I would kill myself.
Yeah, if you're going into a backflip, you have to give it your all.
It's too dangerous.
Because if you get kind of scared at the last second, then you land on your head.
Yeah.
You're gonna scorpion.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a pool, I could practice in a pool. That's why I would do it in a pool. But I would have. But also, I feel like even on a pool, like you could accidentally hit yourself on the side, right? So you have to be very careful.
Just get on the edge of a diving board.
Yeah, there's something I wanted to see. Well, there's a chat I saw earlier that I wanted to address. I should have kind of pinned it or something, but I missed it. Oh, I think I found it. Okay. All right. This is just a little thing. Having Hope 5 earlier was talking about how is Mario Kart Tour 9 isn't it a mobile game? So there's some debate about what the next Mario Kart is going to be. Is it going to be Mario Kart 9? Is it going to be Mario Kart 10? I'll say that Mario Kart Booster Course Pass is about including Mario Kart content throughout the history of the series. And if the Mario Kart Tour is heavily involved in this inclusion alongside other mainline entries, I think that strongly implies it's also considered a mainline entry. And given that it's considered a mainline entry, after 8, that would put it as 9, suggesting the next Mario Kart game would be Mario Kart 10. So that's my take on it. Not that I think it really matters.
Unless they put the 9, it's not 9.
Well, okay. Well, has there been a Mario Kart 6?
I don't know. What was in place of 6?
Well, before Mario Kart 7 was 3DS, right? So I think Mario Kart Wii would be Mario Kart 6.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah,
Didn't have a number. It had a Wii.
I don't know.
A Wii.
Mario
Kart DS would be Mario Kart 5, I think, if I'm counting back correctly.
Mario Kart 64. That's not the 64th entry in the franchise.
No. Imagine if it was.
Oh man. Mario Kart 64
now it's
is
all
another timeline.
It's a mess now. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks
what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen is that actually, eventually, there's going to be a time where we kind of like, as we progress to the future, it's kind of like going back to the past, and this progression in graphics technology is going to it's going to reverse itself, and before we know it, Mario Kart 64 is going to be considered cutting edge, and there you go, Mario Kart 64, the sequel to Mario Kart 63.
This man just went galaxy brain. Just
insane.
Yeah, that's actually the big gimmick for Mario Kart 10. It's going to be like wormholes. So
that actually sounds kind of cool.
It might be, right? You create your own shortcuts. So, yeah. Are we ready for the next topic then?
Sure.
Well, we're going forward regardless. So, all right. The secret Switch 2 feature. What is this? What am I talking about? A secret Switch 2 feature. What could I possibly be referring to here? I don't know. It's a secret. I don't know.
Dang it. That's the end of the podcast.
That's it. Thank you.
It will remain a secret.
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, guys.
So basically, alongside the rumor about Metroid Prime 4, there's also a rumor about something that Nintendo is doing with Switch 2 that is almost PlayStation-like. And Nick is very curious how fans are going to respond to this. He didn't want to say it was positive or negative, right? I interpreted this as potentially controversial. because he's very curious on how people are going to react to this, right? And that's pretty much the rumor. There's something Nintendo's doing with Switch 2 that is almost PlayStation-like. It's something that they have looked into or done before. Is something, I'm paraphrasing, but it's basically his wording here, right? He didn't say it as it's something that PlayStation is doing now, but it's something they've done in the past. So with that in mind, if we assume this is all true, again, this is all rumor, take it with a grain of salt. This is what he's heard. What do you think he might be hinting at here?
There's so many different things he could mean.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, even you say, like, you specify that it's something they've done in the past, and maybe you're not currently doing.
He also threw in that he could be wording it very off, so there's a lot of wiggle room here.
I mean, if you think of the past, I mean, the PS5 has been on the market for a couple of years, so it could technically be something that they launched the PS5 with. It's something they did in the past. But when I try to think of like Sony specific features, think of like the dashboard UI, how that is organized. I think of PS Plus, their subscription service, how they give you free games every month if you're subscribed, and you can kind of grab them and hold them in your library and play them whenever you want, as long as you maintain your subscription. And then at the launch of the PS5, which again was a couple of years ago, so I consider that the past, they launched with two SKUs, a digital version and a physical version of the same console. And you might say, well, Xbox is doing that too, but not exactly, because the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X are different in more ways than just digital or physical. The S is obviously less powerful as well. So Sony is the only corporation doing the diskless and then the all digital with the same power schemes. And with the direction the industry is going, I kind of want to go with the boring answer and just say they're going to have two different Switch SKUs, one digital, one physical. But I don't really know what the benefit of the digital version would be. Yeah. And yes, you could say it's going to be cheaper, but I mean, how expensive really is the little cartridge?
Yeah, I doubt the cartridge slot is that expensive.
For a little bit,
I don't know, but
the PS Digital is $100 cheaper than the physical version.
I'm just going to offer a little bit of context here. I don't know if this changes your take, but he's already put out a rumor in the past that there may be a digital only Switch 2.
Oh, okay.
He mentions
so he's
that
probably not
during
to
this. He mentions that during this discussion. I mean,
I have heard that there's going to be way more storage on Switch 2 compared to even like the Switch OLED.
Yeah.
I'd imagine 256 gigabytes would be like the base model.
If there's a digital only Switch, 512 would kind of make sense.
Probably half a terabyte or maybe even a terabyte model.
Yeah, I don't want to completely like derail your thought though, because it's possible he could have been very like nuanced, right? Like he may have been like, yeah, this, you know how I talk about this digital 2 Switch, like that was a previous rumor. There's something else they're doing now. It could be the idea simply that they may release them both at the same time, because just because he's heard of a digital only Switch doesn't mean that's going to launch day one, right? So maybe that's the thing he's referring to. Now, I will provide a counter argument though. If we're keeping him to everything he said, which he himself said there may be some sort of wiggle room, some inconsistency there, right? But assuming what was said is true, that it's PlayStation-like, then would it also be implying that it's not Microsoft-like? Because didn't Microsoft also do the same thing with the Series X and S, having two different versions, digital only and then a disc version? So,
but it's as Dylan said, it's very different because they're very, very different machines.
Yeah, they have different power. Like the S is not as powerful as the X. So while they are, it is true. They're both like one is digital, one is physical. The S is not the same as like
they're different experiences versus what Sony and hypothetical Nintendo would do would just be offering two different versions that can offer a similar experience. It's just how it's delivered, maybe a bit different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem is that a digital only Switch, like, what's the value in that, right? Like,
exactly.
If it doesn't run discs already, so like, it's not like you're saving, like.
Yeah, because the Blu-ray drives on like a PlayStation 5, I'd assume are kind of expensive at least. It's obviously not the $100 that you get off, but I'd imagine it's somewhere between like $30 and $50. Whereas like the cartridge slot, I can't imagine that's more than like $20 maybe. And I don't know. I'm just pulling these numbers,
No.
out of my ass
Right.
essentially here, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine it'd be that expensive.
Mhm. So yeah, it's hard to say. I'm trying to think of what else Sony does, specifically Sony.
So I believe
know.
I made a video on this. And at first we talked about this on Nintendo Prime's podcast last Wednesday. And then a few days later I kind of thought on it and I had a brain blast. So I made a video on it.
I watched that video.
You did. So you
It was
may
a good
know
thought.
you know what direction I'm headed in.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, maybe it's not about the PS5. Maybe it's about the Vita. And then I was like, wait,
That would be
that
unfortunate.
makes so much sense because the Vita is a handheld that's very Switch-like. So if the Switch 2 is meant to be, like a sequel to Switch, it's also it's going to be a handheld. Maybe something that Sony did with the Vita might be what he's alluding to here. So I threw out an idea. And in hindsight, because, whenever you make a video where you have an idea, you're like, yeah, this idea makes so much sense. And people provide counter arguments like, oh, I don't know. And then so I now have a little bit more doubt in my idea today than I did when I made the video. But I still feel good about maybe thinking about just kind of Vita overall. But anyways, the idea is this. There was something the Vita did that was kind of interesting for the time. And maybe because so much time has passed, it's no longer as interesting. But it also is potentially controversial. It may be something that would raise conversation, as Nick Baker was alluding to. And that is the idea of maybe Switch 2 launching with a SIM card or the option of a SIM card or data plan. And the basic idea with this is that if they have this as an option that you can do, then it facilitates a number of things. One, it facilitates cloud gaming. Which is something that we've seen on Switch already. They could further invest in the cloud gaming, which not everyone would be in love with. But, if you have a good data plan wherever you are, you can do that, right? It'll also facilitate online play wherever you go. And then I also threw out another idea. And maybe this constant data plan can kind of facilitate it as well. Is a new version of a Street Pass, bringing it back from the 3DS. We didn't have it on Switch. Right, but if this Street Pass is an evolved version that includes an online connection and maybe some messaging systems in place, then it kind of makes sense to offer up something like this so people have more online options on the go with Switch. Now, the counter arguments that people provide in the comments, and I do understand it. Maybe it's kind of one of those things that tell me like, do we have to do this? Is that most people have smartphones, and a lot of those smartphones have data plans that can offer hotspot. So
yeah, but most plans don't offer unlimited hotspot. They're like very
unlimited.
Low hotspot.
No, yeah, not
at least
unlimited.
Where I am.
I've played.
I
I have played Smash Ultimate on a hotspot connection. It's not ideal. I wouldn't recommend it.
Playing Smash on any connection is not ideal.
Yeah. So it sounds like you guys almost like the idea, or at least don't think it's a dumb idea.
I do. I thought it was. In the context of the video, you're trying to speculate on what it could be. It's a very interesting outside the box thought that you had. If nothing else, I watched the video and I was like, that's a cool, it's a cool brainstorm idea. Because I know there was plenty of times where I was walking around with my Switch. I know a lot of people don't seem to take their Switch out of the house because it is kind of big, I guess, for a handheld portable device. But sure. I took mine everywhere. And there were plenty of times where I was like, man, I really wish I could connect to the internet right now and play Splatoon or play some Mario Kart or something like that. So having the option at least to put in some kind of internet amplifying device, I think it would solve a lot of issues for a lot of people. I know I would appreciate something like that, but
yeah,
having to coordinate with data plans and stuff though, it's an extra step that maybe more casual mom and dad wouldn't really want to mess with that kind of stuff. So I don't know how beneficial it would be for Nintendo, what the upside really would look like.
Yeah, which is why yes, and I agree, but that's kind of why when you think about the context of the rumor, how it's controversial, that and also very PlayStation-like. This is something we could see Sony doing, not something we could see Nintendo doing, but Nintendo does surprise us, right? So if they do, you know what I mean? That's the point, right? The idea behind the rumor is that it's not something we would necessarily expect Nintendo to do. So I can kind of see that happening. I think it would be beneficial. Someone who does have a hotspot on his phone, not unlimited. I think it's like 15 gigabytes or something, maybe 30. I don't know. I don't use it all the time. But regardless, I don't want to. It's if I had the option to put a SIM card on the Switch, depending on the pricing, I would consider it. Depending on the pricing and the benefits of it, I would definitely consider it. So that's because a hotspot, like you have to turn it on, right? And then there's potential security risks and different things like that. So then I think you can make the argument that while yes, there's a lot of people who have smartphones and have hotspots, that it's not integrated, it's not as seamless, and there's other factors involved that maybe it would still make sense to have the option. That said, that's just an idea, right? That doesn't have to be the correct idea. Is there anything else that you think could maybe make sense? Like I kind of go back to, okay, well, what if it is relating to an idea that Sony did with the PSP or the Vita? Because that's a handheld, right? That might, whatever solutions or ideas they had for those systems might make sense for a Switch 2.
I don't know. I am not very familiar with either of them because I never owned either of them. So I'm trying to figure out, think of any features.
Yeah.
I mean, bringing over a Vita feature would most likely be controversial because, it's the Vita.
The Vita was ahead of its time when it came out. It should have done better than what it did.
I was surprised.
I don't hate the Vita.
Be canned like that. I didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah. I remember at the time, I was a big Xbox guy at the time that the Vita came out, and even I was looking at the Vita like, man, that's kind of cool. Like, I kind of like that. If I was more invested in the Sony space, I'd probably pick one up.
If I was a Sony fanboy, I would have been
definitely
stoked.
I am a Sony fanboy now. I own a Vita, and it's freaking fantastic. I love my Vita. As far as unique features for it, though, to bring over to the Switch 2, I don't know.
I know they have I didn't know the Vita, but I understand there was kind of a special controller thing. Like you could have use the backs to kind of have some controller input.
Yeah.
If you buy the add-on hardware devices like the PS Vita TV, you can hook your Vita up to your PlayStation and use the Vita as a controller, and you can pretty much stream whatever's on your Vita onto the TV. So now you're playing your handheld game on the bigger screen.
And maybe, if you think of it like that,
I don't think
that's also kind of tying into Wii U concept, though, right? It's kind of like a fusion of the.
Yeah.
Maybe could there maybe a scenario where Nintendo has some level of streaming where you can use maybe the Switch screen in conjunction with a TV screen to kind of bring back that dual screen gameplay we saw from the DS or the Wii U, and it's kind of using the same technology that Sony did with the Vita, except instead of connecting to a console, it's just connecting to the dock. The dock has some extra features that allows some kind of functionality like that.
Here's your controversial feature. It's just a box under your TV. It doesn't switch at all.
Oh no!
It's just very powerful, just like the PS5.
I actually think I might know what it is.
Oh man, he knows.
I cracked it. Because the PS Vita, one thing that was super annoying about it is that the upgradable memory, the expandable storage, was all proprietary. You had to buy it from Sony, and it was expensive as crap. And now I'm not sure if Nintendo would release it expensive as crap, but I wouldn't be surprised if they stopped using just generic micro SD cards for the storage on Switch 2 and started using something faster, because they are quite slow, and they may have much faster storage in the Switch itself, just because SSDs are kind of the future of gaming, and they're really, really cheap now. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went with something in the Switch that was much faster, but then the micro SD card speed, maybe that doesn't keep up. So they release their own storage that's much faster, but you have to buy it from them. Although that's kind of an old Sony thing, because new Sony on the PlayStation 5, you can just buy a normal M.2 storage off Amazon, slap that in, whereas on Xbox, you have to buy proprietary cards. So that's kind of an old Sony thing, but that is something I could see happening.
Another thing, it's not necessarily in the past, but they could riff on the controllers, like the improved haptics and triggers and stuff, potentially.
That would just be nice, though. I wouldn't see that.
Yeah, no, that would. Well, I guess it would depend on maybe the price point. Could be controversial, but I'm just spitballing.
What if the thing that Sony has done in the past that Hell's gonna do is they're gonna release a system for $600?
I'm still in. Nintendo fanboys. We're going in.
Do you remember
Switch
what
2.
was it? 2006 when the PS3 came out, and I think its initial MSRP was $599.99 USD.
Yep. There was a better storage version that was like $700.
Wait, if you account for inflation? I didn't hear you.
What Dylan said, I didn't hear either.
I didn't hear you, Brandon.
What did I say?
Oh, me?
Oh yeah.
No, I just said that there was another SKU that had more memory that was like $700.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I just ignored that version as a kid. That's crazy. That's crazy. I don't think that's what it is, just for the record.
Sony controllers have used touch pads that have like touch functionality. Of course, so has Nintendo with like the gamepad. And
right.
The Switch has some touch features, but it's a little bit different on like the DualShock and the DualSense. It's like
yeah.
I think it's the PS Vita. They also had touch pads on the back of the Vita.
Yeah.
You can use your fingers to like move that too.
That was
it's cool. Like an extra little controller input there.
Yeah. I find it annoying because I actually hit it all the time where I don't mean to.
Yeah.
Oh, can you not just disable it?
If there's a way to do it, I haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
It probably is.
Dang. You could probably hack it and disable it.
Yeah.
Just my take. It's one of three things. Well, okay, it's actually one of two ideas that we've presented, right? The third thing I was going to say, it's just that they're going to copy Sony's numbering naming scheme. Just call it Switch 2. Just keep it simple. That's what I've been the proponent of recently. Like, what else do you call it? If it's going to be a Switch 2 successor without any crazy innovative changes, like, what else do you call it for it to make sense? Switch Next? Switch U, switch up, switch down, switch left,
switch all around.
If it doesn't switch, or if it does still switch.
I'm saying if it's still a Switch, I think you should just call it Switch 2.
Yeah, people like the Super Switch or the Switch Plus, but I don't know. I think Nintendo's going to go for something that is so like this is obviously the sequel to the Switch. Like they don't want any confusion, no messed up communication.
No Wii U scenario.
I feel like they learned their lesson from the Wii U. I would go Switch 2.
So,
but once again, like they might try to do something goofy.
Switch VR or Switch Eye, Switch off, Switch on. I'm gonna shut up. Right? Like, yeah. We'll see. But anyway, what I was gonna say though, outside of that random Switch 2 naming nonsense. I'm so you guys kind of help like reinvigorate my SIM card idea, like because you didn't totally like say it was dumb. So like, oh, okay, maybe I'm still onto something. But also the PS Vita, the Vita TV thing, like that, which could maybe enable like some maybe like Wii U and DS like NSO stuff and other options. Like maybe there could be something to that idea as well. And I mean, Brandon, if it's your memory card thing, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's not. I don't like it, but it would be controversial, or maybe not. Again, controversial may be me playing it up a little bit. It depends on what it is, right? It's potentially controversial, but it's more of maybe it's just a conversation starter. Something that's gonna turn our heads, and maybe that's what it would be. Right. So I don't think it's wrong, but just ideas to consider.
I do hope I'm wrong though.
Oh, let's put a poll on this. I didn't even consider this. Okay. All right. So we're gonna do 4 options, but the 4th option is gonna be other because there's just too many options. What is the secret feature Xbox era? What is the secret feature Xbox era was alluding to? All right, there we go. Because there could be other crazy features that we haven't even addressed here, right? But it's just about like what was addressed in the rumor. So, SIM card, what's it called? PlayStation TV or something?
Yeah, I think it's PS Vita TV. I think is what it's called.
All right, I'm gonna say Vita TV, and I'll put in parentheses streaming for Wii U, Wii U DS stuff. No, I'll just put Vita TV. Hopefully, people understand. I don't have enough letters. That's why. And proprietary memory sticks. Brandon. Okay, Brandon's gone.
Yeah, I think he said streaming sticks. That sounds good.
Proprietary memory sticks.
You know, the PS3 also had that unique architecture compared to like other consoles. I guess to get the most out of their games. But it also made PS3 emulation impossible for like other consoles. So that could be controversial. You wouldn't be able to emulate Switch 2 games if they're on like very unique structured hardware.
All right, put out the poll. I expect other to win. But if you guys pick what you believe, that's fine. All right, so let me get to the super chat here. Kitsune84 with a super chat. Thank you for that super chat. Kitsune says, digital Switch, bigger size storage. Nintendo makes less on hardware, but more because digital sales makes more money. Less on hardware, but more because digital sales make more money. Okay, so the idea of a digital Switch wouldn't be so much that it's cheaper for them to make themselves, but maybe would they even maybe sell it at a discounted price? Just all about encouraging more people to get into digital, so to ultimately make more money long term. Because companies make more money digitally because they don't have to make the cartridges, they cut off the middleman. It makes more sense from that perspective, and it's all about slowly getting people weaned off physical to someday be all digital, or at least in the short term, the relative short term, because initially it would be a loss, or not as much. It's just making them a little bit more money. And go on. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say they could sell the digital version for. Oh God, my cats are destroying.
Oh no,
that's okay. They'll be fine. They could sell the digital version of the Switch 2 for far cheaper, even if it doesn't financially make a lot of sense. With like removing the game card not being, the game card is not that expensive, right? But they could still sell it for $100 cheaper just to incentivize a consumer to buy it, because that's obviously the version that they want the consumer to buy. It doesn't have to make numbers sense necessarily for Nintendo to decide, let's sell this for an extra $100 off just to get more people into the digital realm, the digital space. So,
I mean, I would normally disagree with you, but they did say it was a PlayStation-like thing to do. So, normally I would say no, Nintendo would never just sell their console at a huge loss. But I could see Nintendo releasing it at the same price and being like, oh, it has more storage. That makes up for the fact that there's no cartridge slot.
Yeah. It definitely still needs to have expandable memory. And if it's Nintendo's own proprietary memory sticks, then it's another opportunity for them to make more money, right? Because instead of buying micro SD cards from a third party, we buy it from them. That's the only reason I think that idea makes sense, because it would make Nintendo more money. Otherwise, I'd be like, they should just do micro SD cards. It's simpler. And also, they're cheaper and they're getting better. Like, you can get fat micro SD cards for pretty cheap.
Oh, yeah, you can get really big ones. The problem is they're just really slow. Like, they're slower than hard drives.
If Nintendo touts that their new, this is all hypothetical, right? We're not saying this is what they're doing, but hypothetically, if it is like this special memory card thing, like, if they tout that it's faster, I'll be like, oh, okay. That at least makes me feel better about having to do it. It's like, oh, okay, it's gonna make loading cooler, or faster, not cooler, but it'd be cool if it loads faster. Maybe. Maybe. All right, so looking at the poll, I'm gonna leave the poll up for a little while because it's only been up for 3 minutes, but 24 votes in. How dare all of you? How dare all of you? How dare you all pick my option as the least likely? How dare you?
Oh no!
How dare you? Oh, okay. It's changed. It's changed. I got pity votes. So currently at 26 votes, SIM cards at 23%, Vita TV with a streaming box maybe 27%. Oh, it's back and forth. Everything's like in the 20 range. Other has taken the lead.
Come on, Vita TV, you can do it.
Vita
Come
TV
on,
was
guys.
the lead until I started talking about it. So
Let's
that was
band
the problem.
together.
This is interesting. It's a very closely matched poll.
Three-way tie.
So yeah, three-way tie for last. Others has taken a substantial 4% lead. Everything else is at 24. But we'll come back to this a little bit later. You guys ready to talk about Pokemon while we let the poll go through for a bit?
Let's do it.
All right.
Sure.
Pokemon is my jam,
It's my jelly.
and I'm being sarcastic.
Oh well.
Although I did
Right.
play Arceus.
It's
Arceus was
it's
good.
something.
All right. So let's go into that news that you're so excited about. It is exciting stuff. It is, depending on your perspective. So couple things. It's Pokemon World Championships. They tend to always reveal something. So they showed off some new Pokemon moves. We're gonna get all the starters in the Indigo Disc to catch. Like those are some nice things. Like every starter in the history of Pokemon games. So that's cool. You can just catch them. And also, there's gonna be a new Teratype. So for those that don't know, a Teratype is you can terrestrialize like the big gimmick for Scarlet and Violet, where you can kind of obtain an additional. It changes your type on the fly, and that can have strategic implications, and also it boosts the strength of whatever that type is. So let's say you're a water type and you're about to get hit with an electric attack, you may terrestrialize into a ground type to become a ground type. But also, if you have a ground move, it gains additional stabs, same type attack bonus, so it becomes stronger. So they're adding a 19th type, but it has a whole bunch of rainbow colors around it, and it seems to be celebrating all the types, and it's related to the new Turtle Legendary for Indigo Disc Wave 2. We don't know exactly what it does. There's speculation that it's tied to the colors. So people are trying to think, is this like how is it like a 19th type? Like, is it a super effective against everything? How does it work? We're not sure. We have to speculate on that. I assume, I don't know. I really don't know what to make of it, because like, is it going to be superior to all others? Types, like, do we are always going to want to across the board have this, or there are going to be some pros and cons to it, right? Like maybe it's super effective whenever you're this type. Every attack you do is super effective, but also any attack on you is also super effective. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? And maybe
Glass cannon.
Yeah, maybe situationally, maybe great, but it may depend. Yeah, it could turn you into a glass cannon, but timing may be what makes it so useful.
Right.
So perhaps. But the other bigger news is that we got from, I'm trying to remember his name. Is it Tatsume Utsuno? I can't remember that off the top of my head. I can't do it. Did I quote it? Nope. Let's see here. Anyway, okay. I don't. Hold on. I'll get the name. I won't.
So while you're looking at that up, this terrestrialization, is it always elemental based? Fire, earth, water, electricity,
all
psychic,
types.
dragon?
Some combination of the 18 types, yes.
Okay. So there hasn't been any that maximize your attack for the next 3 attacks, or like anything like that?
No, it's not like Dynamaxing.
Okay.
Yeah, you become that type for the rest of the battle whenever you choose to do it.
Oh, okay. So there's timing. I am learning on the fly.
Yeah. That matters. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I finally found an article. There we go. I got it. I got the article so I can remember the name. Okay. So he's a high-up executive, the COO of Pokémon Company, Utsunomiya, said that I'm gonna read it here. What is it with these articles not just showing the quote? I don't understand this.
Yeah, it's annoying.
The articles are so bad about the first 3 paragraphs having nothing to do with what you actually want to see. They drag it out.
All right, so this is what I'm getting from this article, right? See, when I made the video, I had more time, but because it's live and on the fly, I'm like just trying to skim through quickly. But anyways, Utsunomiya said something along the lines of, I think in general, if you look at the path we've taken up till now has been this constant release, always regularly releasing products in a fairly fixed kind of cadence, you might say. Always having these products able to be introduced and new experiences for our customers, and that's how we've operated up until now. I think we're still operating in that way, but there's more and more conversations as the development environments change about how we can continue to do this, while making sure that we're ensuring really quality products are also being introduced. So it's really very interesting about this is that he's talking about how he's acknowledging, hey, we come out with we have a certain rate of release, and we are having conversations internally in terms of how to maintain quality while sticking to this plan of consistent release schedule. In other words, a game every year, some type of new content every single year. And this is important for those that may not be aware because, well, Scarlet and Violet clearly was rushed, has so much game-breaking issues and bugs and performance problems. It's horrendous. I enjoy the game. The core gameplay mechanics and loop and content of the game is good, but it's very clear that it was rushed out there. Like, they could have been so much more. And then even before that, right, like Sword and Shield had a number of, it just graphically was very limited, and there were some odd little glitches here and there that, like, just like, for example, like you could find like watermarks in some of like the cutscenes, like some subtle lazy things. I would say that the audio design for Dynamaxing was a little off as well. In Legends Arceus, I think the game looks good, but it's clear that there's some simplistic textures going on. The water textures and rock textures off into the distance are very basic. So, like, there are issues with these games. I think this is my own perspective, right? I don't want to really rank on this because I enjoy the games. And I think there are things about the games that visually are pleasing. They do have good art styles, but just performance-wise, technically, there's a lot of issues. I've been playing Pokemon Stadium 2 since they released it on NSO. NSO games are upscaled. They look a little bit better than when they did back in the 90s, right? And I'm just like, man, this Pokemon Stadium 2 game kind of holds up. Like, it doesn't look that much worse than 3D Pokemon battles look now. And I think that says something.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
So obviously there are significant difference, right? Like the texture quality and all that. But I just think, like, the Pokemon models in Stadium 2 and the animations, like, and just the way the attacks come out, like, there are things about it that are arguably better than how they are in Scarlet and Violet. Not across the board. Obviously, resolution, all these different things, polygon count, there are differences. But the fact that it's even a conversation that I think you can have, that there are some aspects of Stadium 2 that look better or comparable, I do think it speaks to the point that, hey, maybe, that they are struggling a little bit to keep up with the times.
Yeah. So, I mean, very quickly, a little backstory on my Pokemon fanship, because I already made it clear I'm not a big nowadays, but I grew up in the 90s. I was a 90s kid, Pokemon fanatic back in the 90s. Red version, blue version, yellow was my thing. I kind of fell off in Generation 3, but I do have a lot of nostalgia for the Pokemon franchise. I tried picking up Let's Go Pikachu because it was like the first generation Pokemon that I know and love. Didn't make it through. Picked up Arceus. I liked Arceus. I liked the direction they were going with the open world, and I was like, Scarlet and Violet, let's do it. I'm going to give you a chance. Let's go. And then I saw how broken and busted the game was, and I said, never mind. I'm good. So I'm one of those people who made Pokemon Scarlet and Violet flop. I am the reason that was a financial disaster for Pokemon Company. But it is clear that
was sarcasm.
Very, very sarcastic. Yes. No, they can't fail. They cannot miss. It's clear that Game Freak needs some outside help. I think it's kind of funny that in this quote they're like, well, we want to make the games better, but they still have to come out at the same frequency. Like they almost refuse to budge on the frequency of releases. They only want to get more work done in a shorter amount of time, or in the same amount of time.
They want to find a way to become more efficient.
Yes. So I think they definitely need to bring in an outside studio. I've talked to some people, and every time they're like, Monolith Soft, bring in Monolith Soft and let them
please
help with the open world and stuff like that. And I couldn't agree more. I don't think there's a better development studio than Monolith Soft for that specific purpose. I think just have another company come in, help with the world, the textures, the NPCs, the things that the NPCs do when they're just standing around. So they're not just like robots standing there waiting for you to talk to them. Like give them activities to do, design the interiors of buildings so you can actually walk into a Pokemart and there's actually like someone in there to sell you stuff. Little details like that. And I think that would take a ton of load off of Game Freak and let them do the Pokemon battle, the systems, the strategery. To me, it makes a ton of sense, but what may be holding them back is that there's so many cooks in the kitchen. You've got Nintendo, Pokemon Company, Game Freak, and then Creatures. Is that what they're called? Creatures or Monsters?
Creatures.
Yeah, Creatures. Yeah,
it's Creatures.
Yeah.
And so when you got all these different businesses, they all, I assume, anytime anything goes through, any decision is made, all of the companies probably have to be at least mostly on the same page and all agree unanimously. That said, I feel like a lot of people look at Pokemon and say, oh, that's a Nintendo IP. Obviously it's not, as I just detailed, but I feel like if Nintendo had their say in like what the quality of the Pokemon releases, then they'd probably not do the whole frequency check, that they probably would come out in better quality, because we see Nintendo's releases, they almost never release like a buggy mess of a game. They will hold on to games. They will restart development from scratch for games to come out properly. So I almost feel like that's more on the Game Freak side, more on the Pokemon Company side than anything, wanting to, I think the speculation is to match up with the trading cards and the anime and their release cycle and everything. They want the games to come out alongside them. So it doesn't sound like they're going to budge on the frequency of releases. They just want to be more streamlined. And maybe they could come up with a new engine. I don't know what engine they use for Pokemon, but maybe if they use a more proprietary and like well-known engine.
Here's something interesting about that.
It could streamline stuff. Yeah.
They have been hiring for Unreal Engine development. Now they are working on a project with another studio that may be where the Unreal Engine project, that's what it has to do with. But I mean, what if they they eventually transition to making Pokemon games on Unreal Engine 5?
I could definitely see that. Unreal Engine is like is the most popular engine used amongst game developers. So
Nintendo games have used it, and the Pikmin 4 looks
Monster
amazing.
Hunter Rise. Was Monster Hunter Rise Unreal?
No, that is RE Engine.
They have a special engine. It's pretty good too. But it's like a cap.
It's a special version of the Resident Evil engine, or it's not even called the Resident Evil engine. Actually, it's something else. But it's often referred to as the Resident Evil engine because.
I mean, RE,
yeah.
Resident Evil, but yeah,
but it's not actually.
Capcom uses that engine for most of their games.
Yeah, pretty much everything now.
But anyway,
they used to use Unreal Engine 4. They switched over to that.
Point is though that Pokemon, like I actually like the idea of that.
I mean, it's pretty much the easiest way to come in, and fix everything. Because I do think probably their biggest issue, besides the fact that they're on such a time crunch, is that I don't think they're working with a good engine or good tools for the types of games they're making. Because they've been making like pretty constrained games, a lot of loading screens. They haven't made anything like big open until Switch, and as soon as they started doing that, they struggled so hard. You got NPCs running at 5 frames per second, like right in front of your face. You got the worst textures I've seen on Switch, just tiling everywhere. It just doesn't look good, doesn't run good, and I have a feeling it's just their engine isn't set up to stream assets well in an open environment. It's more set up to load assets at loading screens, and them trying to do all this stuff is just not good for their tools. So they've been probably using the same engine for 20 years, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I, I I don't know exactly how they would have transitioned. I mean,
Yeah,
I
this is my
I don't know.
speculation. I don't. I'm not on the inside
Yeah,
at
they were
Game Freak
making
over there
they were
looking at
making
their
Game
engine.
Boy games once upon a time, so I feel like they must have transitioned at some point. But
Yeah, you
No,
have to
yeah.
imagine the engine's grown or like been enhanced as time progresses, but
How much time have they actually had to dedicate to that?
and when you bring in new hires and you have to teach them how to use this engine rather
Yeah.
than maybe like already having Unreal and like, hey, you're familiar with Unreal? All right, come on in and help us out with
That's a
this.
great
So
point.
if you use an engine that everyone's familiar with, you can just bring new hires or contractors on board in and out much quicker. Efficiency.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that does make sense because they do a lot of outside like contract hiring. But if you have to learn somebody up on an engine, that was actually something I heard was a big issue with Halo Infinite. Is the people who made
Yeah.
the Slipstream engine left, and then they kept trying to have contract hires, but as soon as they would get used to the tools, their contract would end, and so they would get barely any work done. And I imagine it's probably the same at Pokemon Company.
yeah, it's interesting. Actually, Nintendo Prime made a video about Pokemon on Unreal Engine. You guys should check it out after the podcast. It's pretty good.
Okay.
But yeah, it would be interesting to see them do this. And I actually, Dylan, you brought up a really good word that I really appreciate that you said, efficiency, because it kind of goes back to what it seems like Game Freak, well, not Game Freak specifically, but Pokemon Company is looking for efficiency. They want to maintain the consistent release schedule while also ensuring quality. And the only way you would do that is through efficiency. If you're not going to stop the rate of releases, you got to become more efficient about those releases. Unreal Engine 5, as you guys I think very well explained, like, a lot more developers are familiar with that, so you can hire talent without having to teach them. Like, that's a really good point. I never even considered that. So I think we may not have hard evidence that is what they're doing. We know they're hiring for Unreal Engine, but it could be for other projects. But when you consider that, you consider the reasoning here, it's so sound. I believe it. I'm inclined to think that maybe down the road this is what they're going to do. Like, I don't know how the transition will take place, but I imagine this is maybe a direction they want to go in. I will point out a couple things I pointed out in my video today about it. There are some other interesting things that seem to be happening here, like changes that we're seeing with how Pokemon Company handles their games. So the anime, Pokemon Horizons, its initial air date was April of this year. You go back to the initial air dates for the animes for their respective game generations, they happened in November. They coincided with the release of the games. So they waited about half a year to start the anime this time around. Could be suggesting that maybe they no longer want the merchandising and all the media to be as closely tied to the game releases. They may be rethinking their strategy somewhat, so there's a bit more flexibility. I imagine they still have to come out relatively close to each other because the cross promotion does matter, and the games are the core material to it all. But I think there is a way where they can become a little bit more flexible with that timing. So yeah, it gives the development teams a little bit more wiggle room. So that's something. And then also, Pokemon was in the Direct. Pokemon's not normally in the Directs, not to that extent. So it may be the case that maybe Nintendo is stepping in a little bit, and that they're trying to make sure and help out in some way, shape, or form. If that means bringing Monolith Soft or what have you, I'm all for it. But at least we're getting some positive signs that they are headed in the right direction. That said, there's totally a Pokemon game coming out next year. So for those that are like, oh, please wait, it's coming. But maybe they wait 4 years for the next generation instead of 3 as they usually do. And we won't know until 2025. But yeah.
Okay, well, I'll stop you there. I have to head out. I'm a big boy. Got to get ready for work in the morning, so I got to tuck myself into bed. But I appreciate you for having me back on.
Yeah, man.
So we'll have to do it again sometime, and I'll talk to you then, I suppose.
Yeah, bro. Have a good one. Guys, Dylan's channel is linked in the description below. Please check him out. Awesome channel. Fun, exciting videos. So check it out. But you have a good one, buddy. See you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
Talk to you, man. And then there were 2.
But look at that, though. See, because now we're on this setup, it just
So
transitions
clean.
normally. Yeah, on the previous one, whenever someone leaves, it's a mess.
Mm.
I have to sort it out. Now it's just there you go. That's it. It works. We do have to work on the audio stuff because like the it doesn't clean out the background noise as much. I know you guys had made mention like I understand that like it's been audible. But where Brandon's at right now, it's like what 95 degrees or something.
Yeah, it's still in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 100 till like not that long ago.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, guys. I didn't want to tell Brandon to like he's going to die if he turns off the fan. It's not him breathing, it's the fan. And I don't know. I mean, maybe you could reposition yourself. Are you on your phone?
No.
Oh, well then I don't know. We'll figure it out later. We'll test things out. It's fine. But for those wondering, it's just Discord. It's not the one good thing about the prior setup is that Discord had good technology that would just automatically clean out background noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did click something here that's supposed to help, but it didn't seem to. I thought it would make a difference. It might have made a subtle difference, but it wasn't anything substantial.
Not good enough.
Not good enough. Yeah. But Brandon's vitality is more important. So, yeah. Hopefully the audio wasn't that bad. But anyway, we're pretty much done with the topics. Now I'm just gonna open the door for some Q&A, and yeah, that's it. We're ready. So anything you guys want to talk about, be it Metroid, Pokemon, Zelda, Mario, Switch 2, Star Fox, the clouds. We're opening it up to just straight Q&A. So I am now hunting the chat. I will point this out though. This is because I was trying to look for an image, and actually Dylan sent me this image on Discord. I didn't see it. I should now check Discord now. I can now check Discord now because I don't have to use Discord for the podcast.
Oh yeah,
another little perk. But let me show you this image that Dylan shared with me from the Jedi game. That is kind of what he was trying to allude to with the how Prime 4 could look in terms of like the open.
Right.
Like that. That's it. It looks pretty good.
It never loaded for me. What the heck?
Well, it's here.
On your screen, maybe.
It's on my screen.
Well, enjoy it, guys.
It looks good. Here, Brandon, maybe I could
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Now I see it. Yeah, I've seen a screenshot similar to this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming you can explore all this.
Yeah, you can.
Here. I'm assuming that it's not like because there's a cliff here. I'm assuming that the cliff isn't like a hard stop. You can jump down. I mean, there's even a beacon. There's a beacon off there into the distance. Like so,
Yeah.
If this is if this is like the Prime 4 expanse, that's pretty cool. I actually like looking at this more, right? Like kind of be thinking about it. Like just me pretending this is Prime 4, right? Like, well, like kind of maybe I don't know. I kind of feel like Prime 4 should look better, which is insane, probably because it's on more powerful hardware.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna look better than Jedi Survivor, fam.
Do not underestimate the power of Retro Studios. Oh, actually, I wasn't trying to make like a Star Wars pun, but do not underestimate my power. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I have anyway. I can envision an environment. It does feel like a very Metroid-y environment, more open.
Yeah.
And I can kind of envision like if you go out into these different like cavities and like areas, like I could see like a door maybe extending out to another region or a tunnel or a hole that goes.
Yeah, I assume those segments are more like the first game, which is very Metroid Prime like.
Yeah. I can definitely envision this as I see what Dylan was going for here. I wish I saw him. I didn't realize it, but Dylan, if you see this after the fact, and I see what you were getting at. I understand now.
It all makes sense.
Cool. This would be cool. This is the kind of environment I would like. Obviously, something more Metroid-y, right? Because this looks more like natural. But they could do some cool things. They could do some cool things. All right, but let's Let's go back here. All right.
You should play Fallen Order sometime.
I should. Should I play the? Yeah, This is
Well,
Survivor.
you play
right?
both. Play Fallen Order. It's not that long of a game. You can beat it in like 15 hours. So play Fallen Order and then play Survivor.
It's been a while. They might be at a discounted price now, right?
Fallen Order, I imagine. Survivor, I don't know.
I don't know. I probably should. Maybe I'll do that. Because the thing is, like, maybe like Halo, not Halo Infinite, Elden Ring. Like that's
Oh, the thing about Survivor is you need a next gen console to play it.
I've been thinking.
Although
Like,
supposedly they're supposed to be porting it to the last gen consoles, but I don't know when.
yeah,
So
yeah. I've been trying to debate should I get a PS5 or an Xbox.
the PS5.
I know you tell me to get a PS5 because I can just play my games on my PC.
Yeah.
I feel like I got to upgrade my CPU before I do that.
No. You have a very competent CPU.
I just sometimes
You have a good enough CPU to hit 120 FPS plus on pretty much every game.
Interesting.
Unless maybe the most demanding new titles that are coming out. Then you might have to go down to 100 FPS. Ooh.
Yeah. I also don't like playing here. I like playing like on a big screen. I guess
Change your setup to allow you to play on that TV.
I do have HDMI extenders.
You could even buy an Xbox Series X controller and play it on your PC.
Pretend I'm playing it on an Xbox.
Yeah. You're just playing. All you're doing is playing it on a better Xbox. At least in terms of like that's how Microsoft sees it.
I have two
They don't care.
6-foot cables. I don't think that I had I had ordered a 15-foot cable and I decided I didn't need it, so I returned it. I now regret that decision because I could have just
Yeah,
used
I got rid of some HDMI's and different cables I used to have, and I definitely regret that. And I was like, why was I so nice to give away these cables?
Well, I guess my point is that like, buying a cable and a controller is cheaper than buying a $400 Xbox.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, assuming my computer runs it well.
It
Which
should.
according to you, it should. I have what, like 32 gigabytes of RAM. I have apparently an okay PC. I doubt, but all right. And my graphics card's relatively recent. Relatively.
Any game that I mean,
I don't.
what games are even exclusive to Xbox anyways that you couldn't play on PlayStation other than Starfield?
I want to play Starfield. I just really want to play Starfield. The space thing really gets
Your
me.
PC is very much in the recommended specs for Starfield. Although they're kind of iffy on those specs. But yeah, it should be you should get a great 60 FPS experience.
The other problem is I can also see myself not playing Starfield because it's basically Fallout in space, and I don't play Fallout, so
it's like Elder Scrolls.
It's
a lot
not
too.
well. It really just comes down to whenever I play those games, I'm like, oh god, this is gonna take me a really long time to like truly fully enjoy the world.
I mean, that's how Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are, anyways.
Yeah, but Zelda, the Zelda.
That's fair.
The Zelda thing, and then with Xenoblade, it's just story. Like, I don't 100% the.
Well, what about
side
X?
quests. I do some. I did the story.
You just did story.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man.
I put like 300 hours in X.
I think it's just in that strong Nintendo bias.
That's fair.
That strong Nintendo bias. It overpowers a lot of limitations. The other thing is that because I'm a Nintendo YouTuber, I when I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom, I can tell myself, well, this is for work, right? If I'm playing Starfield, it's not for work. There's nothing about Starfield that will amount to anything productive beyond just me having fun with it.
Which is exactly what gaming should be.
Yeah, I get that, but I just don't have time these days.
Nah, I feel you.
Yeah, if I was a more successful YouTuber, I wouldn't have to work as hard.
True.
But at the same time, I don't want to be someone who becomes complacent either. Like,
nah.
Yeah. But it would be nice to maybe have a little bit more time in my life. A little bit.
To play your PS5.
To play my PS5, yeah. That I don't have currently.
But you will get, and not an Xbox.
I also want to play Demon Souls.
Yeah, that's PS5 only.
Yeah, also Final Fantasy 16 at first I was somewhat interested in.
I really want to play that game.
Yeah. There's a lot of games, man. I just don't have the time. God, give me time. Anyways, let's get to the chat. sort of ranting about how I want a PS5 and also time control. Okay, I'll consider downloading Halo.
I have Halo Infinite.
I played it before I upgraded my PC and it ran like garbage.
Well, the multiplayer is free. Also, you have a way better card now.
Yeah, that's true. The restarters. Hey.
The game plays on my card, and it's way worse than yours.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm looking through the chat. Guys, feel free to @ me. Let's see here. Jean-Carlos saying stylized realism will be the focus for Metroid Prime 4. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, even something like Pikmin 4 is kind of a stylized, realistic look.
Yeah.
It's not quite photoreal.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I agree with that for sure. It's not going to look photorealistic. I mean, you look at Metroid Prime 1 and 2, like at the time you could say they were realistic looking, but I think stylized realism is maybe a better term for it, because I think they still hold up well even today. They do pretty good. Captain Doge, a dream game for me would probably be a Star Fox game. Would be Star Fox game made by Bandai's Project Aces. Ooh, Ace Combat and Skycross for developers with an arcadey style dogfighter. That would be pretty darn amazing. I agree with that. King Frost, a Prime 4 open world sounds like the new Halo.
Well, that's what it was being compared to. So
well, I just want to point out that Metroid's not just really about shooting. I mean, that is kind of like how you fight. Like, it's like calling Metroid Prime a shooter. It's like calling Zelda a sword fighter. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you ask someone to explain, like Brandon, explain to me what Zelda is. Like, act like I don't know what it is. What is Zelda?
What is Zelda? You got adventuring, you got puzzling, you got crazy items, you got medieval, but you got some technology. I'm not very good at describing things to people who don't know anything about things, apparently.
I'm trying to pretend I don't know about what Zelda is. I'm trying to learn new.
I'm trying to wonder what you would want to know.
It's just puzzles. What kind of puzzles?
Puzzles. You got those. You push the block and then on the square hole.
Oh, sounds stupid. I think I'm just gonna play Fortnite. Thanks.
Oh no, not Fortnite.
Well,
what have I done?
You didn't do a good job of explaining those.
Lost another one.
The puzzles. You said move a block. That doesn't sound too exciting to me.
Oh no. You can move blocks with your mind in the new one. It's pretty crazy.
Sticksack, Andres Restart. Are you coming to PAX West? Unfortunately, no. I'm not going to PAX West. Mainly because I didn't think there was going to be any sort of big game presence there. Also, I have a vacation that's happening. I thought about it, but I'm going to another country. I'm going to Colombia for a week for a bachelor party, basically. So I'll be gone outside of the country for a whole week, starting August 27th, and I won't come back till like September 3rd. I believe that kind of it overlaps with PAX, and there's no way, even if it was right after, I can't go that long without being home. I don't want to leave my cat with my brother for that long. And I still have to. I work better from home, right? Like, I can't.
Obviously, yeah.
Be a mission half. Not to mention, it's also expensive to go, right? So
yeah.
With that, and by the time the PAX is done, I will be returning for my trip. Said it's just impossible, unfortunately.
However, I will be going in his stead. All expense paid trip from Andres.
Yeah, maybe in a couple of years. Maybe when we get to 100,000 subscribers, I'll pay for it. Yeah.
Get that subscribe button, guys.
Netweed explained Zelda better than you did. He said an action adventure RPG.
To be fair, I did say it had action, adventure, and puzzling.
I'm just messing with you. But
No,
yeah.
I did not describe it very well.
Yeah, I'm not even. Do we call Zelda an RPG? Is it really an RPG? I mean, there are
I
some
didn't call
RPG
it one.
elements, I guess.
I mean, I would say Breath of the Wild is more of an RPG than the older ones. Were definitely not really. You didn't really level up, or I mean, there's like hearts, but it's not levels. It's just like an item you find that you can upgrade. I don't really say there's like stats or any kind of RPG things I would think about. But maybe, I don't know. RPG is such a broad term.
Yeah, yeah.
It probably is still an RPG.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. We're pretty much near the end of the show, guys. If there's any final things you want us to talk about or address, please put it in the chat now. We'll be closing out in like maybe 5-ish minutes. Unless you guys throw me for a loop with a question. I'm like, oh man, this is a real conversation. Hey, shout out to Paul Gill Network. What's up, buddy? How you doing? Let's see here. Yeah, King Frost. It's gonna be a fun party. It's not my bachelor party. I'm not getting married, but it's friends. So, yeah. I'm seeing the chats update different times. Oh, you know what I haven't done? I haven't pulled up the poll. All right, so.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness! I can't believe it. I can't.
Oh
believe it.
God!
I'm ending the poll now.
Oh,
I can't.
Oh.
I can't believe it. I can't. I
This is
completely forgot
crazy.
about the poll, and my goodness,
My
goodness.
idea go into last. What happened?
That's what you get for sucking.
To be
Yeah.
fair, my idea was not an idea I want to be true.
All right, so here it is, friends and family, and hopefully not enemies. What is the secret feature Xbox era was alluding to? This is in relation to Switch 2, right? So we had 75 votes. At a meager, pathetic, not so impressive 21%, we have the proprietary memory sticks that Brandon suggested.
To be fair, I tied with third place.
Well, yeah, it says 21%, but we know it's marginally higher. The Vita TV idea from Dylan's at 21% as well, but above. So there's something a vote or two difference there. I put in parentheticals with a box, but the basic concept is like the idea of streaming from the Switch to the TV. Maybe there's a box involved in some way, shape, or form. And that could maybe facilitate maybe DS or Wii U gameplay, or maybe just 2-screen gameplay on Switch 2. It would have, I imagine, it would be something optional, but that would be kind of neat. And in the third option, I had other, and I put explain in parentheses, 25%. So if any of you guys have any ideas, you feel free to explain now, because I don't.
Better explain yourself.
Yeah, and then as a supreme ruler of them all, when I didn't actually expect it to win, in fact, there was a time when the poll first started for the first 10 minutes, it was in last place by a margin. It was this option, but somehow when we forgot about it, just talked about things that people made their own natural decisions, and one made the most sense.
Everybody decided to backstab me and betray me.
No,
I see how it is.
They just picked the choice that just seemed to make the most sense, and they all agree by all 30%. 30% of the 55 votes agree. The secret feature Xbox era may have been alluding to for Switch 2 is a SIM card.
I mean, to be fair, these are all pretty close.
Yeah,
30% being the highest is not super high.
They're all within 9% of each other. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all very close. And there's a strong possibility that all of them are wrong, except maybe Other. Other has a
yeah, that has the best chance of them all, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is interesting that I had this conversation with you guys about the SIM card, because I, after making that video, there are people who say, oh, that's a good idea, right? And there are who stick to their own ideas, which is totally fine. But there are also people who are like, yeah, I don't think so, right? I'm like, okay, that's cool. But it's just kind of like when you see, you know what I mean, right? Like when people tell you something on like just YouTube comments, like because you get a widespread a range of opinions, you don't necessarily have a good metric for how many people think your idea makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there's a vocal minority and all that. And so talking to both you and Dylan on it, and to hear that you guys are actually, hey, it kind of makes sense. Like that actually, it would be potentially something worthwhile. I was like, oh, okay. I'm not just alone in my thinking here. It's not just a crazy idea.
No, I think it could be useful. But, I mean, at the same time, it's not going to be for everybody. Maybe they only include it in certain SKUs. I don't know.
Oh, God.
What happened?
Wall just caved in.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding. No, I have a whiteboard.
Oh, not the whiteboard of ideas.
Yeah, it's my whiteboard of ideas. I had some adhesives on it, but apparently they weren't good enough to hold it up, so I'll have to address that. Stayed on for 2 weeks.
Dang.
It held on for 2 weeks. So, I actually had something else that was like a nail, and that didn't work. It was actually one of those like adhesive hang-ups, and then I was like, no, I'm gonna use something else. I think I just gotta use nails. So I'll fix it. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. So I apologize for the crash. Everyone's okay. The cats aren't in the room because I didn't want to. And I say cats because it's not just my cat in the house. I'm watching my brother's cat because he's on vacation right now. So his cat is with me, and his cat likes to meow a lot. So I didn't want additional noise, so I closed the door. But they're good. I think Varan Verby was asking earlier. I don't know if you're still watching, but yes, Ruby is totally. She's having a great time. She's healthy and happy. So King Frost with another super sticker. Thank you, King Frost, for that. I very much appreciate it. Thank you. BRX, I thought Nintendo could charge for the network service. Absolutely, they could. I imagine they have to partner with a provider to get this done, maybe AT&T or Verizon or something. So that's how Sony did it, at least. It'd be hard to believe that Nintendo would become a network provider. They don't really get that done. That would be they would have to partner with some company. Of course, obviously they would get a cut, I would imagine, right?
I didn't even think about having to use a specific company because a lot of people have phone plans where their iPads and everything are also included, and I would just imagine just having another line on your existing plan for the Switch would be great for people. And if it's only one particular company, that's going to make a niche product even more niche.
Maybe. Yeah.
But I don't know if it's possible to not go with a specific provider or not. I have no idea.
I mean, maybe it's the thing is, maybe it's not something you set up through your phone plan. Maybe it's something you sign up through like the Nintendo eShop, right? And it's just they have an agreement. The SIM card's already in there. It's already built in, and you just you pick one, or
maybe,
yeah, or maybe you just take a SIM card and you put it in there. It's not that simple. It depends on the provider. Like I know some people wish they could just take like a SIM card and just throw it inside like a device and it has internet. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Not always. Sometimes it does. Like my brother did that with one of his iPads and it actually worked. But it was from an iPhone to an iPad.
Yeah.
So, on the same.
I think it depends on the provider, and I think as time progressed, they've kind of changed those things because I know.
Yeah, it was a long time ago too.
I used to work for AT&T, and people used to do that, and then it stopped working. It's because AT&T stopped letting people do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, they probably can't. You probably can't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's not that it doesn't make sense. It's that because it made sense, people were saving money, and AT&T was like, nope, let's
not allowed.
More money by blocking that option. Yeah. Yeah. Take it smooth. I imagine SIM card support would become part of NSO. If it's like if it's one of those things where you don't sign into your own provider, but it's something that's like they strike a deal with a company and it's just something you sign into online. If it's something that's included into NSO, that would be very, very interesting.
I think maybe. I don't know if they would include it with NSO because I don't think so many people would need the feature. And it would probably be expensive for them to do that on their end. But I could see another tier where you get, the service and you get. I don't know if they would go with just the base tier of online that it's included. Probably. but maybe they'd give you the expanded one. Depends on how much it is. But I could see them including at least some of the online benefits with the mobile plan.
Yeah. I don't know. This is just an idea. Nintendo may never actually do it, but if they do it, we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
That we don't know. I mean, Nintendo always scares me a bit with their innovations, but somehow I've come to love all of them with time. LOL. Is there any Nintendo innovations that I just straight up dislike? Okay, I got one, and maybe this is a bit of a hot take. It's only a hot take if you're like a hardcore Nintendo fan that that seems to not hate anything from Nintendo. I do not like the 3D effect on 3DS. I wish it did. I wish what didn't happen.
I disagree. I actually like the 3D on the 3DS, and I wish I got to use it more often. Because I didn't own a 3DS. I owned a 2DS. So I only got to use the 3D with my friends, the 3DS. But I liked it, and I actually really like 3D movies, and I wish 3D TVs would come back, and just 3D content in general. Also, a reason I love VR. I just like 3D content. It makes the scale of the world, especially for big open world games like Breath of the Wild. I played that in VR, even though it ran at like no resolution on the Switch. I played that in VR over replaying it on my TV any day because the experience is so much more immersive.
I do enjoy VR. I like VR a lot, actually. It's pretty cool. I actually saw that there's like this third-party company that has like these like running in place kind of stands, so you can play VR while still moving around. I really like that idea. That sounds kind of expensive, but man, it sounds cool.
That sounds like an arcade. Yeah. That maybe VR is the reason arcades could come back.
Yeah,
I have some insane VR setups with like dedicated rooms built to be the levels.
VR arcades, like that's what they are. Oh,
I would definitely go in a VR arcade. The whole entire it's so cool. You could have a shooter where the entire environment's just laid out. Obviously you wouldn't.
Yeah,
need to,
people could be in the same room. You could put 20 people in a room, but they all are in place. But in the game, they're all running around each other.
Yeah, you can use either AR or VR, combination of the both, and just have like a real full scale. So that way, when you're actually moving around, that's even better than just being able to stand on and run in place one, because you feel like you're in the actual environment. Which is
I now have a business idea.
I
love the idea. Well, I mean, it probably would be more like build like a barcade, right? And just make it something that's really fun for people to come over and hang out. Something I miss is that arcades aren't really a thing anymore. Not good ones, and game stores aren't really a thing anymore. So I would love to be able to kind of invest in one that brings in a good amount of people. That's a lucrative business, but it's also really fun and exciting. Something so kids growing up can be like, oh man, this is super cool. Because I had those moments growing up, right? Like I remember going to Dave & Buster's. They used to have like these giant like pods. You can go in and they were mech games, and I would get the highest scores in them. They were really cool. Like that's something you can do elsewhere. It's like playing in a mech. Going back to the VR thing on 3DS, because I didn't explain myself. I appreciated the novelty of it, right? Like when I first got a 3DS, I was very curious about the 3D effect. I liked how when you looked into 3DS, it was like looking into a window. It was cool. But in practice, long term, it just ended up being very I always wanted to enjoy the 3D effect, but I eventually and I would kind of put it on sometimes in defiance because I wanted it to work. But ultimately what happened for me is that I just found that it created this ghosting effect where it always looked like I always kind of see the image twice a little bit. Like there was always like a slight difference.
Did you ever try the new 3DS?
Okay, I did. And it still happened on that too.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
That's probably just the low resolution of the image, probably.
Yeah. So
I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, probably just low quality of the hardware.
Yeah, I mean, so theoretically, maybe they can improve it more so, but even on the new 3DS with the improved camera tracking and the bigger screen, it just wasn't enough. So I would always see that issue, and I just feel like, okay, I understand they're trying to do something cool here. I want to experience this, but ultimately, I think the experience is worse for it. It's too distracting. I'm too focused on trying to get it adjusted to work, and it never really works consistently. So it was a problem. And I hate that because it was a cool idea, and when it works, it looks amazing. But unfortunately, it doesn't work consistently enough to not take away from my immersion of a game. So I didn't like it overall.
Gotcha.
Yeah. If I were to think about any other features that I disliked, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but that's one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. BRX, I agree, Andres. Ocarina in 3D was cool at first, then I finished without it. Yep, same deal. Eventually, I was just like, yeah, it's better just to have it off. The sliders seem like a good idea to try and maybe balance out the problem. To kind of have varying intensities for people with different I guess taste or eyes or circumstances, but it was never enough. I think we're pretty much. I guess I would hate to end the podcast on a I hate Nintendo 3DS point. I don't hate the 3DS. I love the 3DS. I just didn't like the 3D effect. Oh, okay.
Which, to be fair, is like most people's opinion on the 3DS.
Yeah, it's probably not even that much of a hardcore take. It's just it's a hot take for me because I love almost everything Nintendo. But this will be the final chat for the night, probably. So Brian Doe, has the opinion changed that I may have been right about Metroid Prime 4? Really starting to look like it's going to have a similar vibe to Red Dead 2. Remember how that was not going to happen? So I'm not sure what you're alluding to. Are you talking about?
I don't know if we've seen anything that makes it seem like it'd be like Red Dead 2.
Do you mean like open world, or like what? What do you mean by Red Dead? I didn't play Red Dead 2. I know it's open world, right?
It's a Rockstar game.
Yeah, I'm just not sure.
Is it Rockstar or Rocksteady?
Is it about bounties? Maybe. Is that what this is?
I don't know. I haven't played a lot of. I haven't played it either. I've seen some gameplay, but not a lot.
I'll tell you this. I'm gonna look more into that story about Metroid Prime 3 having some open gameplay designs. At first, I could see that becoming a video at some point. Maybe soon. I'll also look at a little bit more into it, think on it, and because there's bounties are brought up, right, and more of an open structure is brought up, and those could be cool things in a Prime 4. So if that's what you're alluding to with Red Dead, I don't know because I haven't played Red Dead. But I will say though, we don't have really any evidence suggesting Prime 4 is going to be open world. Well, I mean, you could argue that calling it big and open would suggest it's open world, right? Because, for example, we go back to this image of the Star Wars game, right? If we didn't know what it was and I showed you that image, would you say it's open world? It looks pretty open, but
right.
I think it's one of the things where there's too much variety in games to make an assumption on what it is based off just the image you see right in front of you. So, we'll see. But I do think that Prime 4 is something that we should be really excited about.
Oh,
yeah. Anyways, that is it for tonight's show. Brandon, anything else you want to say before we call it a night?
Nah, I don't. I think we covered it all.
Okay. Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.